Yes. Hata leo saa hii
unasikiaje?
Mimi niko mzuri.
Unasikia mzuri?
Kulala ndio nilala late. Kuna soma something.
Hiyo ni kawaida yako wewe.
Bwana, it happens every once in a while. You find something interesting to read. Then you get carried away.
Hiyo ni kawaida yako.
That is an absolute truth.
So ulilala late?
It was actually more early than late, really. Early as in the morning.
Okay. Sawa brother.
Na wewe?
Mimi hapana iko na shida kabisa. Mimi jana nilijisikia vizuri na leo niko salama.
Nimefurahi kusikia.
Yes. Hello everybody. So, those measures have now kicked in.
Thoroughly.
Everything. Lockdown is in effect.
As from 12 p.m. yesterday.
Is in full force.
Yeah. If you didn't fly or drive or whatever yesterday, sorry, honey.
If you didn't close school and get home, find another place. Rudi uko umekua.
No, where you are, stay there. You know what we're saying, basically.
What? Okay. So we'll have a conversation about that today. And a conversation that we started yesterday on social protection measures and anything that can be done, safety net. Various organizations are already speaking out and saying, okay, we'd like something to be done, especially the hospitality sector. Mohamed Hersi, the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation and who's a hotelier in the coast, is going to be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll have this conversation with him and also we'll be asking Parliament. So what is it that Parliament can do to bring in measures that can help the executive to cushion Kenyans? We'll be having a conversation with MP Shakil Shabir, also in the 7 o'clock hour. At 8 o'clock, we cross over into Nakuru to find out. So now that Nakuru is part of the disease zone, what is Nakuru County government doing about that? What measures have been put in place? We saw yesterday, Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe talking about the shortage of oxygen around various hospitals. So is that affecting Nakuru? So what is Nakuru doing? Also, what's the county government of Nakuru doing to address the small-scale traders and other vulnerable people in the Nakuru society? Governor Lee Kinyanjui will be joining us at 8 o'clock. We'll open up the conversation thereafter to understand what's happening. In the meantime, let's just look at those figures.
2 cases yesterday, 18 new deaths, coming off of a weekend where there were 884 cases, new cases. And just looking at that information that we're likely to see higher numbers well into mid-May. If all predictions that were made then are correct, that's what we would be looking at. All right. So Kenya now has 131,116 cases. 2,135 deaths is what the total number is in the country. Right. So right now we're still looking at, and I think we'll look at this story later, but, you know, it's been reported that there are those who are hoarding oxygen in the country, even as the shortage looms. So we're looking at a shortage of oxygen. Sorry?
Cylinders.
Yes, cylinders. Yeah. So even as the oxygen is made available, where to store it and then have it for use has become an issue. And so I think now it's going to the highest bidder in terms of who's ready to, or able to pay more for it. And so people are hoarding the cylinders. So even if you have the oxygen, then there's a shortage of how you're going to be able to use it. That's another story.
It's a whole different challenge, though, because just like, and I was watching that press conference by Mutahi Kagwe and the leadership of various oxygen-producing companies, and they're saying, okay, in a hospital setting, it would be best to think about piping the oxygen. That thing of everybody sitting there with their cylinder by their side is not really ideal for a hospital setting. It would be best if you think about piping. And remember, that's the same thing that Governor Nyoro of Kiambu had talked about. Let's have bulk oxygen that then we are dealing with buying in bulk and refilling in bulk.
Yeah.
Not looking at everybody has their own car cylinder that they're pulling around.
Talking as somebody who has been hospitalized and has required oxygen at some point, I didn't have my own canister. No. Ilikuwa nakuja kama gas.
Nakuja
kama gas.
Natoka kwa ukuta.
Unaona tu kuna wall fulani on the left hapo. Iko pipe. Na hiyo pipe iko na funiko fulani. So iko oxygen natoka hapo.
Bas.
I remember.
Yes.
It's true. Some hospitals, some facilities actually have it piped. Majority of them don't.
Many facilities, especially if you think about the level 5s, 6s, and the privates, would have it
Have it piped, yes.
And then now all these new facilities that we're talking about, so they have a shortage of oxygen.
If it's a government facility, what you will find that if you look at the books and the development process that they've gone through, it is indicated they all have piped oxygen.
Bas.
But upon examination, when there are a few cylinders,
It's a pipe dream.
yeah,
Well done.
cylindrical in shape.
Bas.
Yes. So, unfortunately, some of the misdeeds of the past have a way of catching up with you at a time when you really least need it. This is now all those misdeeds.
Coming up.
You have the money, you should have done this, you didn't do it. Now it's catching up with you.
Yep.
And you know what is of interest? You assume that it wouldn't catch up with you perhaps because you are in a certain position, albeit an elevated one. We're now in a situation where we have something that catches everybody. It does not matter who you are.
Exactly. Looking at higher numbers, another country that's now starting to bear the brunt of this is the United States. The head of the CDC yesterday, Director Walensky, she became really emotional during a press conference where she was talking about the recent happenings with COVID in the US. The cases have started to rise yet again, and they're going past the 70,000 per day. She was emotional during the COVID briefing early on this morning. And she says that ditching prepared remarks, what she had prepared to tell the American public, she ditched those because she was scared of the rising case numbers in the US. And I quote, "Right now, I'm scared. I so badly want to be done. So I'm asking you to just hold on a little longer. Now is one of those times when I have to share the truth and I have to hope and trust you will listen." She said she paused and said it's time to reflect on the recurring feeling that she has of impending doom as concerns the coronavirus in the United States. And this is what she called it, impending doom. So being the head of the CDC...
I think things are going to get worse.
Yes. And we must realize also that... at the beginning of this season, just breaking off winter, going into the first months of spring, she also and her team had said, look, guys, don't ditch the mask. Don't ditch these measures that we've tried to put in place to make sure that people are safe. And today, or rather, yes, so a few hours ago during her briefing, she said, you know what? I had come to tell fellow Americans, but I'm not going to go there. I've come to beg you to please do what you can do to take care of yourselves right now because it's going to get bad. And coming from the head of the CDC, for her to say this, she obviously has some information that she wanted people to heed to.
So did she explain? So what's going to get bad and why?
Oh, we must also realize and understand that spring is coming, and so they're going into flu season, right? Mm-hmm. And the hay fever that happens in the United States is crazy.
It's upon them.
And so they're getting into that season. Combine that with just the way it spreads. Mm-hmm. And again, you're going into a new season. People want to come out. Americans are saying they're tired of staying indoors. They want to come out. And the winter is coming to an end. They've been cooped up for the last 3 or so months. And so there's that feeling combined with what she knows to be scientific fact that it is going to spread, that COVID is going to spread as a result of what they had seen previously, and then people not taking those measures into consideration. So,
meanwhile, those states that said you can walk around if you want to,
Texas, California, Michigan,
naked if you don't care.
Look at the death toll.
How is it?
Well, let's look at Texas, for example.
Right.
Texas, total deaths, 48,370. Let's look at the specific numbers that they recorded just yesterday. Quite some. Okay, so I missed it there. But okay, so we're looking at a total daily new cases. Yesterday, they recorded No, that doesn't make sense.
March 29th, yesterday.
Nope, doesn't make sense. Total number 2 million. So total number of cases in Texas is 2,788,000. 25,000 total tests have been done. Total deaths of 48,000. 100,000 active cases in the state of Texas. I'm trying to look for the numbers that they actually just recorded yesterday. And, okay, can't find that. But, yeah. One of the hardest hit states, definitely, but what they're looking what the governor is looking at in terms of people's rights is that, okay, come out, guys, it should be all right. Daily deaths as of yesterday.
Life is a personal choice.
Yes. 97 new cases yesterday, new deaths yesterday, and then there we go, 104,889 active cases of COVID-19 in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Okay, so...
And the other states there, California and the rest?
Okay, so let's look at California. So that is the top state right now. They have a total caseload of 3,664,398, right? 58,000 deaths. I mean, if you just want
58,000 deaths.
Yeah.
And the population of California is about, 39 million people?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Total new cases in California yesterday, 3,148. Okay. It's a big deal. Total, I mean, it's about a third of their population has been infected with COVID-19. And this is one state in the Western US. So you can imagine what the rest of the country then looks like. So by the time Walensky is speaking this way, she's begging Americans, please, I have the science, but here now let me speak to your mind and say, please, not now, just wait. Give us a little bit more time to be able to get a hold of this.
She will not be heard.
No.
You know, there are situations we refer to as an unfolding situation. Some we say it's unraveling. And some, it's history that gives you a clear picture of what happened. This one, you don't need history. You can tell what's going to happen with great clarity.
Why?
To understand, the US just look at Brazil.
And that's where I was going now. Just before, let me give you those numbers, CT, before you're going to go to that. Brazil now has 12,577,354 cases, right? They're continuing. This is crazy. Just look at the cases that they found yesterday. At 42,666, this is the lowest number of cases in the last 7 days. We're looking 44,000 the day before, 83 the day before, 82 the day before that, 97, almost 100,000 cases last week, Friday. So we're coming off of a weekend, and this is the numbers that they got. Let's see what happens this week. But really, again, really hitting them hard, and they're burying people at an alarming rate. So that was 42,000 cases yesterday, and then a total of 1,969 deaths in a day.
Actually, forget burying people. It's going to bury the president. That guy's presidency is over. He may think he's still president, but it is over. If you look at what's happening politically, the resignations that he has within even his cabinet.
People are abandoning ship.
Yep, as they say, Chinua Achebe put it very well, things are falling apart.
Things are falling apart too. Things are falling apart.
Things are falling apart, and it's overdue.
Let's take a break at this point. 16 minutes after 6. The live stream is up. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I want to say hello to you wherever you are. It's raining in Nairobi. Well, it's been raining overnight. I hope it's in all of Nairobi, not some parts of Nairobi. And as we take this break, just to remind you, with everyone advertising for job vacancies, who can you trust? The Standard Jobs is an all-inclusive platform that offers credible job vacancies, so you don't spend a cent to get a job. If you want career advice, whether you are starting out as an intern or looking for that breakthrough to get to the next level, we got you. What's even better, you can subscribe to the newsletter or SMS service to receive job alerts on the go. Just log on to jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. That's jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. A number of jobs have been listed there. Some are even showing you when the job vacancy actually expires and the announcement expires. So, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Sarit, your city, is inviting you for an Easter celebration like no other. Come over with your family and loved ones from the 2nd to the 5th of April and enjoy a special Easter-themed shopping experience with special mall deco, the Easter Village, Sana art display for the lovers of art. Enjoy unlimited live performances. Don't forget to check out the Easter Fair, where you can get great deals and offers. All this and more only at Sarit, your city. All COVID-19 protocols set by the Ministry of Health shall be observed.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 17 degrees in Nairobi this
The
morning,
weather.
and yes, rain showers for most parts of the morning. Highs of 25 and lows of 17 today. It's also raining in Nyeri at 15, highs of 23 today. Looking at cloudy conditions that could turn into rain in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 15. It's clear in Eldoret at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Raining in Kisumu at 20, quite heavily so, highs of 28 and lows of 19 today. And it's also raining in Kakamega, 26 the high and lows of 17. Light rain in Mombasa, likely to get heavier at 26. We'll see highs of 32. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 27. Rain showers at 18 in Kampala, 23 the high today. Is it raining in Dar es Salaam? Yes, it is at 25, highs of 31. Clear skies in Johannesburg at 12. We're seeing highs of 23. Mostly cloudy conditions in Lagos this morning. A chance of rain at 27, highs of 33. 30 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's raining currently at 22. We're looking at Beijing, and it's sunny at 18, getting warmer and warmer by the day. Highs of 21 and lows of 8. 8 is what it is in Paris. Clear skies going to highs of 24 and lows of 9. Clear in London at 7. Highs of 22 and lows of 10. And Monday night in New York, it's clear at 9. It'll come into Tuesday with highs of 13 and lows of 3.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Minutes after 6.
94.4 Spice
Thank
FM.
you for tuning into the Situation Room. Very many people are online this morning.
Yes, it would appear so.
Eh,
Gasheri Wambi Jiwe tuned in from Thika Road this morning. He says yesterday he managed to get the COVID-19 jab from Kenyatta University.
Ulipata SMS, Kasheri? Hiyo ndio swali.
That is the question.
Siti hapa.
Labda SMS ilienda spam.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Ama ulipata fuliza.
Yes.
Ulikuwa na fuliza, so SMS ikakuja, ikamezwa.
Na fuliza.
Na fuliza.
So when Fuliza gives it out, okay, then I will know.
Then you will receive.
But for now,
Okay.
nail by mouth.
Oh, God.
So Gasheri Wambijiwe got her COVID. Okay. Who else?
Bishogoro Omakaya is tuned in from Gitari.
Right.
Where's that?
Gitari.
Yeah.
Gitari. Who knows?
Gitari in Muranga.
This is gay.
Gay, not Gi.
A Gitari.
It's gay. I have no clue.
Oh, okay.
If it is coming from Bishogoro Omokaya, Gitari could be somewhere
In Kisi.
Kisi.
in Kisi
Kisi.
or Nyamira.
I hear you have to say Kisi. It's not Kisi.
It's not Kisi, it's Kisi.
Yes. Just some
not
information that I
joining you
heard from
people.
some quarters.
I know where the place is. That's what's important.
It is Kisi. Okay.
JF Kennedy Ouma says, hey, okay, here, sir, I don't know. But how will the executive offer support to the affected people financially when they can't afford oxygen for the sick? Well, there's a question. He has said something else that maybe Siti can
Siti, just read
translate.
Which one?
JF Kennedy.
Highlight it for him.
Here.
Oyaore.
How will executive offer
Mbamba.
to
The first
top.
thing here, Siti,
That-
here.
Oyaore Uru Jomabea. Greetings. Good morning, all of you beautiful people.
Oyaore Uru Jomabea.
Yes, Oyaore, it has opened up in the morning. That is Oyaore, it has opened up.
Right.
Uru is you, all of you. You're there. Okay. And Jomabeo, the people who are good.
Hey,
As in,
oh,
but meaning
daddy.
beautiful people.
Voila.
Oyaore.
You have tickled his fancy this morning. Okay. Washira Wilfred. Hey, guys. Getting you online in Gishugu as, like always, only that my little dry cell radio has packed. Uh-oh. Good morning, Mombasa well-tuned. That's Robert Mpogo. Lemon Tanui Kapte. Good morning from Nandi. Tuned in from Keses. That's where Linus Ojala is this morning.
Keses. Okay. I'm not sure.
Which county is it?
Is it Nandi?
Or
is it,
Wasingishu?
I'm not sure. But I suspect it's Wasingishu.
Mimi Sijui.
Linus atatuambia.
Linus Ojala, tell us where Keses is. Good morning, folks. And that's Waterman Jeffries tuning in from Hennepin County in the US this morning. Yes. Tuned in from Macha. That's Beda Ashley. Jeffrey Mochama tuned in from Kisumu Kibos. And Eriko Namba Hey, says good morning, family. Good morning to all of you this morning.
Abu Jamal Dennis says, Hongera kwako nduoko. Excellent. Your Kiswahili is better than the two gentlemen combined.
I like you, Abu.
And we agree.
Completely. Mine is fractured at best.
Yours is smooth. There's a gentleman who's currently in his father's vehicle heading to school. He is a candidate this year's Form 4. His name is Aiton Adunga, going to Consolata School, class of 2020, with his father, Rutherford. We wish you all the best, Aiton. Rutherford is one of the listeners to this show. Aiton, all the very best as you sit your exams. You've worked hard. Let's give him that line of the success card. Hard work plus determination minus fear is equals success.
My prayers go out to him that his memory would be in the topmost possible form.
Right.
And that he'd be calm and that he will respond in the manner that he has been taught and in the manner that is required.
May knowledge be at your fingertips, Aiton.
Yes.
All the
Good.
best.
Indeed. So, Siti, today's proverb.
Yes. Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Shiba.
Shiba.
Lakini usiwe mjinga unaposhiba.
How do you interpret that? I think I'm already thinking of three different interpretations.
Oh, three only.
Yes.
Okay.
One, do not allow your belly to make you useless. Don't be led by your stomach. Use your head. Don't be bought so easily. Two, usikule sana.
It'll hamper movement.
Become useless.
In fact, it'll even hamper breathing.
Three, a grumbling stomach. And you're too hungry, you're useless.
When the stomach speaks to you.
Okay. Eric the Druid.
Don't be too hungry, because then you'll be useless. Don't be too full, because you'll be too useless. Don't be led by your stomach.
Lovely interpretations.
I don't know which one they meant. Who are they? Who came up with this one?
See, Africans, who else come up with such things?
Wow. Wow.
Who else would come up with such a saying?
And John reminds me of another one. Empty debbers make the most noise.
Yeah, loose nuts make a lot of noise in empty cans.
See?
Debe tupu.
You hear? See, Africans at work immediately
Come up with
debe, nails in a debe.
Loose nuts. Okay.
Let's look at the headlines.
So, the front page of the Standard today, heartbreak for the Obamas. That's a story that's being covered. Quite some coverage on this, actually. U.S. President, former U.S. President, President Barack Obama, of course, gave a glowing tribute to his grandmother. And this has been quite covered on the Standard today, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, talking about her influence in the community, her influence on the life of President Obama, and the people of Kogalo. Kogelo. This is Eric's fault.
You know, you have no excuse. Huh?
He set me up yesterday. He set me up. Kogelo. That's what I said.
Eric can be excused. Okay? Remember, the place you originally came from, one of the problems they had, they didn't know whether this person was Oginga Odinga or Oginga Oginga or Odinga Odinga. They didn't know.
Actually, Jaramogi is who?
Oginga Odinga.
Is Oginga Odinga.
Yes. Not Odinga Odinga or Oginga Oginga.
So Oburu is?
Oburu Oginga.
See, now
And
this
Raila is?
Raila Odinga.
Hey! You see now, that's not confusing at all. It's clear as mud. Clear as mud. It's very nice. Thank you.
Look, when somebody looks for entertainment early in the morning, please provide him with the entertainment.
Okay. So, Kogelo.
Yes, thank you.
This is
Gotten some good coverage.
very good coverage.
Page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the Standard.
Yeah.
Page 3, 4, 5 in the Nation. You know what this tells you is that newsrooms were prepared for this day. These
had
stories
good-
were done a long time ago. They'd just
Yes.
been canned, waiting for the moment, the inevitable moment that Mama Sarah Obama would pass away.
Remember, she's been out of the limelight for some time.
For some time.
Yes.
She was 99 also. She lived a good life, I think.
Yes.
This is interesting because Obama did pen, he was on social media and he said a number of things. But here's where he said that Granny served as a bridge to the past and her stories helped fill a void in my heart. And he had told several stories of how he didn't really know his father. His father was not really present. If you read his book, he's talked about this quite some. But he says, my family and I are mourning the loss of our beloved grandmother, Sarah Ogwell Onyango Obama, affectionately known to many as Mama Sarah, but known to us as Danny or Granny. Born in the first quarter of the last century in Nyanza province on the shores of Lake Victoria, she had no formal schooling, and in the ways of her tribe, she was married off to a much older man. While only a teen, she would spend the rest of her life in the tiny village of Alego, a small home built of mud and a thatched brick, without electricity or indoor plumbing. He goes on to talk about her life, and he says that, when he first traveled to Kenya to learn more about his heritage and father, who had passed away by then, it was Granny who served as a bridge to the past, and it was her stories that helped fill a void in my heart. Right? He says, we will miss her dearly, but celebrate with gratitude her long and remarkable life.
Yani, that village has just been denied some huge major celebration in coming days by COVID.
It would have happened.
Can you imagine how
Kogelo.
You know the whole world would have descended there.
Yes.
My goodness. It would have been maybe a couple of weeks
This one
of celebration
man, it would have
of the
gone
life
on.
of Obama himself would have been expected to land.
Yes, no.
But he would have landed.
But he would have
And he would have landed. Because everything that one reads and one has had occasion to see indicates that he and his grandmother were very close. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, she was the one who filled a lot of the gaps in his heritage that he didn't really know about.
That Twitter read that you just provided, I liked it. Because clearly, those who understand that the former president's father came from Luo Nyanza, the president is American.
Yes, no.
Because by the time someone writes and talks about indoor plumbing, okay, Alego is not a village. No. It is a much larger geographical area. The village is Kogelo. That is, because it would be a clan who live there. But he is not writing for those who are African to understand. No, that writing is for people
in
who
America
are to understand exactly, yes.
That's true.
Indoor plumbing. Sour.
I think another thing that he said that was that is said in these stories is that for somebody who was uneducated in the formal terms, right? She was an icon of education and family values, that she insisted that those who were around her or those that she sired then got an education. And she used to say, and this is one of the quotes that she's remembered by, if a woman gets an education, she will not only educate her family, but educate the entire village. Something she said quite often, and something that she can be remembered for. So,
Indeed. 6:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Time for us to look at the traffic this Tuesday morning. So now that the lockdown is in effect, yesterday there was not much traffic by this time in the morning. So how is it looking today? Let's find out. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
It's looking
day.
pretty good this morning, guys. The roads are a bit slippery because of the rains that took place overnight, and this is across the country, from Mombasa to Nairobi, then out towards Nakuru and into Kisumu. Slippery roads everywhere you look. So first thing first, you have to be very careful while applying the routes today. And then there's no traffic, so there's a temptation to go a lot faster. Don't give in so that you arrive alive, okay? Secondly, we're looking at a little bit of traffic on Mombasa Road today. We're going to see this because of the construction. Not necessarily that there's a lot of vehicles on the road, but the construction is going on, so it's going to slow things down considerably. Getting out into the CBD looks pretty good coming off Mombasa Road, however. As you get into the CBD and then out towards Westlands, it looks all right. Thika Road, a driver's dream this week. Take advantage of it while you can. Not much traffic, a little bit right around the Pangani Tunnel, but it'll take you out into the CBD without too much of a headache. Let's hope it stays this way, shall we? SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's hope this Tuesday keeps things moving.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 26 to 7. Engineer Aete John Mapangala says he's locked. Say hi to my fiance Rosebel Geno from Nyakach Koguta, Kisumu City Reloaded.
Yeah.
Okay. Rosebel Geno.
Greetings to you, Rosebel.
Hi.
Hi, from the man who called himself your fiance. I hope he's yours fiance. You can't just make assumptions.
Oh, that he says he's.
Well, that's what we are quoting him.
Him, not her. Oh,
No,
okay.
he says.
Yeah.
All right.
You remember, folks, there was this ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal.
Yes.
It is no longer stuck.
It's no longer
You
stuck.
know, 23rd of March. Today is the 30th, is it?
Yes.
Yes, 7 days.
So now 320 vessels can begin to move along
Actually,
slowly.
they had gotten to 400. Yes, so now they can actually move. But what is of interest is the effort it has taken. That thing, my friend, 400 meter long. That thing is long.
It's a long thing.
It's a massive, massive ship.
Yeah.
Right? The Ever Given. That is the name of that ship. You know, I didn't know until this happened that 10% of the world's trade actually goes through the Suez Canal.
Yep.
And it affords Egypt a tremendous amount of money on a daily basis.
Imagine.
So you can imagine how much they lost in 7 days.
Yes, and I can imagine the nightmare that insurance companies have had. And the battles ahead. Because even for the Given, if it is understood that it was natural causes that beached it, no problem. But if it was the error of the captain or the coxswain or whoever the driver of the ship is called.
Yeah, that guy.
Yes, that guy. Then it's a different debate altogether.
Well, you know, that's what it was. Is that initially it was that the high winds caused the vessel to move in that direction and then have it stuck right at the canal. But then now the debate began that, hold on a minute, there could have been human error in this. And it wasn't just the high winds that moved it, because it's not the first time high winds have been experienced in that area.
You know something?
But by the time you're also hired to be the driver, pilot, coxswain of such a humongous vessel,
You got to have some experience under your belt.
A lot of experience.
And you think it's the first time this guy
That is
actually went through the Suez Canal?
Let's try today.
No.
Unless he had an intern.
Yes, or says
training.
Could you
Just
please
hold
go
for me.
outside and have a look and see? Okay, put out your hand and see in which direction the wind is blowing. No. The sort of equipment that such ships have. I mean, it's a whole town loaded on this particular ship.
Totally. It's a huge.
I was talking about several football pitches. This is more than several.
You know what I thought was interesting? That they had the super Dutch crew to come along and try to figure this out, and they were basically paying them per hour. But then it turned out it was the Egyptian crew at the end of the day who was able to dislodge this thing. I thought that was interesting also.
That's what's being reported. The truth of the matter is, yes, I'm actually being factual here. These people were called when the Egyptian crew clearly were at their wits' end. And it wasn't one tug. Very many tugs came. The Egyptian didn't have tugs powerful enough. And this particular company is the world's foremost salvage company. They are known is when everything else fails, you call them. Yes. And you're not in a hurry to call them because they cost.
Yeah.
And then they come with the heavy equipment. And clearly, yes, the people who understand those waters better than anybody else would be the Egyptians. So they would have a huge say on it. But believe me, the assistants that came from Holland played a great role.
Oh, sure, the assistant cannot be looked over, that's for sure. But at the end of the day...
well, for prestige and pride, you know who rules Egypt? And you're going to say, we brought in the Dutch to come and do it.
The Dutch assisted.
They helped.
Yes,
the Dutch helped.
And following the advice that they were given and the directions they were given by the Egyptian crew, the ship was able to be dislodged from dislodging place.
Okay, well done.
All the best to them. So, Elio Dowalo, in one of those clips that we play from an interview that was here, he says, we have become a Fuliza country. And this is very true. Last year, Kenyans borrowed 1.2 billion shillings per day on Fuliza and Mshwari. And this is according to the results, the financial results released yesterday by NCBA Bank, which is the one that advances a lot of the Fuliza money, all the Fuliza money as the guarantor. They say Kenyans borrowed a total of 432 billion shillings on Fuliza and Mshwari mobile loans, averaging 1.18 billion every day, representing a 30% jump compared to 330 in 2019. So last year, amid the COVID issues, Kenyans went more into the mobile lending app, run by Safaricom, Fuliza and Mshwari, and they borrowed heavily. What is also notable here is that Mshwari loans dropped, Fuliza loans rose. Fuliza is where you go and you're buying something from a merchant and you don't have enough money. You borrow to pay.
It's overdraft.
It's an overdraft. You borrow to pay to purchase. Mshwari is where you go and borrow from your savings, based on your savings on Mshwari, and then you borrow and you shall repay. Now, not many people were borrowing from Mshwari last year compared to the previous year, but more people were borrowing from Fuliza compared to the previous year. 1.2 billion shillings per day. That is a lot of money.
It is.
And according to the CEO of NCBA Bank, Mr. John Gashora, he says, what they noticed is, what they were just recording is every transaction is considered a new loan. So it could be the same person who has gone back to borrow like 3 times in a week, but every transaction is considered a new loan. That's how come
it is a new loan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how financial institutions work. If you borrowed money and you want to borrow again, you don't just borrow. You start the process anew.
Fresh.
Yes. It's a new borrowing. It's a new debt. Yes.
So there, he says that Mshwari actually contributed a lot to the loan loss provisions of 20 billion shillings last year. Those are unperforming loans. 20 billion shillings last year, contributed heavily by Mshwari. The typical default rates for Mshwari range from 3 to 3.5%. The default rate, however, shot up to 8% in some months last year. COVID and its effects.
Talking about COVID and its effects, the Nairobi Stock Exchange, again, isn't really doing that well. And part of the reason, well, it's exacerbated by the lockdown, but the sums in terms of billions of shillings that they are recording having lost because of activity, and people, especially foreign investors, selling off whatever they had invested in blue chip companies, amounts to 80 billion. That is in terms of loss of net value. So what is likely to happen is more and more of these stories, okay, where there'll be losses. Manufacturers will indicate losses. Businesses will indicate losses. And I'm sure in the course of the day, we'll be talking about some of the losses in the service industry. But this is what it is. But a little upbeat. Yesterday, I saw something very interesting. Very many health facilities around this city were crowded.
Yeah.
Should I say overcrowded? I live near the spinal unit of Lenana Road. At first, I thought something was wrong. Cars were parked off the road, on the side of the road, everywhere. So I figured, let me go and try and see
What's happening.
Yes. And then let me also go and see. It wasn't a meeting. People are getting vaccinated, my friend.
Right.
Remember yesterday we were talking, I was saying that with this news of the outbreak, the likelihood is it's going to stir people into getting vaccinated. People are getting vaccinated. People are taking vaccination a little more seriously.
Right.
Yes. I decided to pass by Mbagathi as well. The queues were long.
Queues are long, eh?
Oh, they were long. They were long. People are taking vaccination seriously.
And I suppose now we are basically vaccinating anybody who turns up.
I think so. I think that's what's happening right now.
So.
Nobody's being turned away, and I don't think there's any problem with that whatsoever, and I don't think anybody can fault that action right now.
Yeah,
I think
priority
it is
was
actually the way
given to
go.
those that are frontline workers. They had 2 or 3 weeks to do so. They still have the opportunity to go. Now let's just open it up.
But think about it, frontline workers, if we start of all with healthcare workers, they are at the very base at which people get vaccinated.
Yes.
Yes. So where's the problem here?
There's no problem. Okay.
There's none.
There's an interesting story on page 10 of the Standard. Uhuru follows Kibaki's script for backyard in final term. The Uhuru government is pumping billions of shillings in development projects in Mount Kenya in a bid to secure its legacy ahead of 2022. President Uhuru Kenyatta elaborately following the script of former President Mwai Kibaki of rolling out mega projects in his backyard, heading into his last year at the helm. Just like Uhuru, Kibaki dedicated his first years of the presidency for national causes and development, almost creating the impression that he was neglecting his backyard. But the last stretch provides an ideal opportunity to chip back home, and the Uhuru government is pumping billions of shillings in development projects in Mount Kenya just 2 years after Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria claims the region was neglected during the 2019 New Year party at Thika Stadium. The president commissioned construction of the 30 billion shilling Kenol Makutano Sagana Karatina and Great Northern Highway and 27 billion shillings Mau Mau cluster network connecting Nyeri, Murang'a, Nyandarua and Kiambu counties, a stretch of 540 kilometers in Kiambu County. Backyard roads under construction include 45 kilometers of Mau Mau spur roads in Gatundu North and 30 kilometers in Gatundu South. So, it looks like Mount Kenya is getting a facelift.
What I'd like to see, and I'd like to see from these stories, is a comparison. So let's look at the counties that are considered Mount Kenya, how much investment has gone into infrastructure in the Mount Kenya region in the last X number of years, and then compare to other regions. Say, in comparison, for example, the cluster of counties that are called Ukambani counties have had this kind of investment. In comparison, the cluster of counties that are called coastal counties have had this kind of investment. Then we can clearly see, because something like that now, that expansion of the Great Northern Road, that's the road that goes to Moyale.
Yes.
And Ethiopia.
And stops where?
Ethiopia. It doesn't stop, actually. It goes all the way to Addis.
Okay, I got it. Okay. I had missed something there.
Stops nowhere. Let's take a break at this point. 6:45. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are looking at the headlines in the papers this morning. And then we'll be having a conversation about COVID-19 and the restriction protocols. We're having a conversation with Mohammed Hersi, the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, shortly. Good morning.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from...
Every morning, spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi
is the Situation Room. We're looking at the headlines. That project in Mombasa, part of the housing, the Big Four agenda, right?
You're referring to the Buxton project?
The Buxton project.
Yes.
6 billion shillings Buxton housing project has gotten the green light, and it's about to be launched by the president in coming days. So a team from State House that was led by Head of Presidential Delivery Unit Andrew Wakahio and the Principal Secretary for Housing and Urban Development Charles Hinga went there. They inspected the progress that's being done, and they were like, yeah, it's good. So now the president is expected to go and launch it soon. This was being announced by the man who is in charge of the company that has won the bid to be the developer of this new project, Suleiman Shabal of Mombasa. We spoke to him about this, and he was, talking about what the plans that they have to work with the community that has been living in Buxton over very many years, for generations, and then seeing how else then to improve the area.
Actually, they do mean what they're saying, because one of the things that they have done is something that is unusual, but it's what you call a social consideration. Each tenant is getting 240,000 Kenya shillings to relocate. And each tenant is actually getting the first offer on either acquiring or renting the building or a unit of the
new
choice,
units.
yes, when they are completed.
Right.
So there's a social component to it that is admirable. But this is 2 court cases later. You see, there was a precedent.
Yeah.
Pangani had a similar project, they went to court. Even when the projects began in Mombasa, they went to court. But one of the things that the High Court and even the Court of Appeal found was that, remember, these houses belong to the county.
Yeah.
Okay? The only understanding that the tenant has is that of a tenant. You are the tenant and this is the landlord.
Yep.
And the landlord can actually ask you to leave there. But people have lived there generationally to the point where it has become what we call the agishagi. Okay? There are people who are grandchildren of those who lived there originally. So there's a sense of forgetfulness that you actually are a tenant. You actually think this is home. And that is where the social consideration came in. And they understood that, look, these people have lived there their whole lives and their families have been here. So let's give them a consideration so that when they move, we enable them to actually move out peacefully as they await for the buildings to be completed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see how it unfolds. I think these are good projects. It's a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. And we have those many huge tracts of land, for example, in Nairobi, that are owned by the county.
Yes, they are.
Surely, if we just dedicated energy and focus on these kind of things, PPPs,
actually
on developing them, we'll sort out housing.
You are right, because the Urban Renewal Project covers literally every estate. But like with all things, you will find there always some hiccup. The land area that you may find on the title deed and the land area that's actually available when you go to the ground, you will find is different.
It's different.
Because, yes, and it's in all the major cities of this particular country. Over the years, individuals who believe that they understand how to manage land issues better than others have cut off chunks of land, allocated this and the other. So it's the same thing that they do with public land. You find over time people have just hived off pieces.
Yeah.
But the Urban Renewal Project is an excellent project, and it will ensure that there is a renewal in, should we say, public housing.
Let's hope the next administration will pick it up, because that's the other thing.
The reason why they don't have much of a choice,
that was a Nauru project.
It is a PPP. It's a private-public partnership. So again, unless the next administration comes in and they don't seem to understand why it is that you should renew these really ancient estates, I do not see anybody thinking that, because the equity that the county provides is the land. Okay? Now, somebody's putting their money to provide you people with something that you may not be in a position to. Why would you want to go against it?
On this?
Yes. What logic would you use?
And speaking of lands, the Ministry of Lands has taken out a huge advertisement in the Standard today, because, you see, they started renaming the title deeds. Is it renaming? Is it renumbering? So any person with interest in land within the registration unit who is aggrieved by the information in the conversion of the or lists or the cadastral maps is invited within the next 90 days from the date of publication of this notice to complain and to have that addressed. So land registration, notification of conversion. So old LR numbers now have new parcel numbers. Okay. So, for example, a piece of land that was LR number 228383 is now parcel number 3. And this is all in Nairobi. So if you own a piece of land in Nairobi, please buy the Standard today and see what your new shamba is called.
It's called.
Don't go
It's a
starting to
different
sell
number.
at the LR number 21/1/79. You should be selling piece of land, parcel number 257.
Sure. So the serial numbers is what is changing, right?
Talking of land, I remember there was this little matter of the payout that was given the National Land Commission to people who owned land that was acquired by Kenya, the SGR Railway. Well, MPs have decided that they are taking Dr. Swazuri and his team, they are taking them on. And they want to find out how and why it is they authorized Railway to pay out 12 billion shillings. It catches up with you.
Somebody's got to answer.
Sooner rather than later.
Oh, okay. So a little bit troubling story. I mean, we looked at a little bit in terms of details of this last week. But 600,000 people in Kenya today in dire need of food as drought bites. So yeah, you can be here in a little bubble thinking that everything is green and lush, but there's a drought in the country at the moment.
600,000
people. Right.
And that could be a conservative number.
It actually could be on the lower side of what we're looking at now, right? It is estimated that at least 640,000 people are at risk of starvation in the region that is Turkana West Sub-County and then going west. Reports from the Famine Early Warning Systems Network and the National Drought Management Authority warned of an unfolding crisis in Turkana County, especially due to failed rains. FuseNet, in its February report, noted that the drought situation in Turkana, Marsabit, Isiolo, Wajir, and Samburu required urgent government response before it deteriorates to a famine. Well, that did not really happen. So now we are on the edge of this famine. The forecast of below average 2021 March to May long rains are expected to negatively impact crop production and rangeland resource regeneration. And this report was released in February. Based on data collected during the 2020 short rains assessment exercise, the Kenya Food Security Steering Group estimated that around 1.4 million Kenyans in arid and semi-arid areas were staring at hunger. And right now they're not staring at it, but they are living it.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big... You see, that authority there called the National Drought Management Authority. So their job is that look at, coordinate very closely with the Met Department. They have experts look at, okay, so what's likely to happen? We're likely to have drought here. So manage the impact and the effects of the drought. Which means that now you raise the alarms and you work coordinating with the interior and coordination of national government, with the county governments, with the other ministry of ASALs and all, to make sure that people are not affected. I wonder whether the authority itself does its job fully and then it's the other agencies that don't pick up their tabs, or the authority itself has some issues because we have drought every single year.
Yeah.
Every year people are facing starvation. Every year we're talking about this drought, there's the need for response to this drought.
But of interest, Eric, the numbers of the people involved doesn't go down.
Yes.
It keeps increasing.
Yes.
For me, an even more worrying factor is that these folks have the technology to be able to... you have resident bodies that can determine the outcomes of low weather patterns, of low rainfall and things like this. They told you months in advance that this is what was going to happen. They can predict what the rainfall will be because then it translates to how much you're able to harvest or plant even in the beginning. So we have this, it's there, it's available. Again, a typical example of where data should form a decision that you then make. But we wait until people are actually sitting under trees hoping that they get food one day. And we're in the middle of it.
The public service as we know it exists largely for most Kenyans in need by name.
Yeah.
In name. Whether the service that people expect to be provided for them is provided is always in question. It's always in question because it doesn't matter which level of government you look at, you will find that there is a huge gap somewhere. You have officers in place, you have the agency in place.
Yep.
They are even financed, so the resources are in place. And yet there's that gap.
We end up there. I think there's also an over-reliance on foreign assistance. If you look at all these things, when it comes to disaster response and drought response, there's money that comes from outside that comes to address this. And there's huge reliance on that. So these guys could be doing their work. They take a report, and that report now is what is being used to rally and mobilize funds to come and address this. By the time you've mobilized the funds to come and address, a couple of people are already facing starvation.
Just go back.
Not just hunger.
Just go back to the consideration that became apparent with blood donation in the country. Funded for the longest time, for close to 20 years. You're told in advance the funding is coming to an end, and something as simple as making sure that the needs are in the budget so that the money can be allocated.
Someone forgets.
Somebody neglects. So, yes.
Nikubaya. As we talk about the pandemic, Senator Johnson Sakaja has come up with a law, a proposed bill that is called a Pandemic Response and Management Bill, through which he's hoping that future pandemics will be better managed. Remember, he was the chair of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 before he stepped down.
Yeah.
Now he's looked at what's happening and he's like, okay, I think we maybe need better coordination coming from the legislative side. And so he's proposed that. Let's see how the debate of
do we really lack legislation when it comes to...
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So, the problem we know.
A lot of it is goodwill. Maybe now the law is just coming to force you so that if you don't act, there's a law that you've broken.
And we know how that goes, don't we? But let me not be a wet blanket here. It is a good thing. Let it continue seeing the light of day, and let us hope that it will serve the purpose that it is intended to serve.
Yes, indeed. So what tax reliefs do Kenyans need at this time during the second wave of a lockdown because of the third wave of COVID-19? Various sectors are calling out for the government support and help. Already, Governor Alfred Mutua of Machakos County yesterday announced a raft of measures for tax relief for various groups of people in Machakos County. We'll be having a conversation in the next hour around that. And the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, Mr. Mohammed Hersi, will be joining us. What does the hospitality sector need? What does it require right now? What kind of impact is this lockdown going to have on them coming out of just the other hard times that they had? Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's not too terrible this morning. Getting off Mombasa Road into the city, it's a bit slow, but not too bad. Did you carry an umbrella today? You might want to turn back. It's going to be quite rainy for most parts of the morning. And this means that roads are slippery. And then where there's construction, you're going to have to go a lot slower. And so this could affect traffic, especially on Mombasa Road, where the construction is still hot and heavy. The Likoni interchange is already moving slowly today and then trying to connect to the southern bypass. So it was going to take some time out of this one. Coming off of Thika Road, not much of an issue at all. It's actually flowing very well. There's a temptation to go a lot faster. Please be careful. Caution, it's foggy on Waiyaki Way this morning as you're trying to get into the city. Outbound as well. Should be all right, though, beyond what was the roundabout. Take it easy also coming from Eastlands. Jogo Road from Uchumi is sluggish as you head then out into the city. As you then get to Landis Road and into the CBD, it's slowing down just a little bit, but doesn't look too terrible, at least for now. Let's keep an eye on things. Half an hour or so, we'll take a look at what it looks like then. Talk to us. Let us know what you see. If you're stuck somewhere or if there's an incident that you need to wiggle out of, share with us. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
City, this road coming from JKIA all the way to Westlands. Expressway and the construction of that expressway. Did you have an experience this morning? Because I did.
That isn't actually a road. There's a portion there. They should actually tell us in advance that they've created a lake.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because there is a place where your car actually literally gets submerged. Literally. No, I'm not exaggerating. The car sort of like dips in, and you can, if it's a small car, you can actually see the car more or less just getting into the water.
You become evergreen.
Yes, and it becomes an aquatic vehicle. And then it suddenly emerges on the other side. Surely, that particular dip has been there for the longest time. And I would have assumed that people of such expertise would have known that if and when it rains, there needs to be an outlet for that water. There isn't.
There is no smooth surface at all. We are talking about a diversion
Did you
that's
say
about, what,
smooth?
100 meters?
Did you say smooth?
Yes.
No, it's more than 100 meters. It's more than 100 meters. Because the moment you actually, before you even get to that shopping mall, you already experience the rough road. Then it gets rougher. And it gets rougher for some 200 meters. It's not 100, 200 meters. You go past the Shell petrol station and beyond. Now, I do not know the expertise that these people have, but it's clearly not showing. Because it isn't just in the building, but it's ensuring that the road on which people are traveling is something that doesn't do damage to your car.
It's
And this one
absolutely-
is going to do damage to vehicles.
Oh, yes. And it's so discouraging that, so you are coming to put up a mega project of a road and you are not able to just make the diversions to make sure that traffic that is not severely affected. It's going to be affected because you
Not
are
severely,
reducing the
yeah.
number of lanes and all. But come on, surely. It's not just that section. Everywhere where there's a diversion on this highway, there's
a problem.
A problem. I think the contractor who's working on this road should do something. But most importantly, the Kenya National Highways Authority, who's in charge of the project, should be doing something. Like I said,
And Eric,
engineering is a discipline of solutions,
Eric,
not
you
problems.
need to be specific. When you say do something, they may think that you're telling them to fall asleep. No. That is not what we're saying.
Something about the problem
Do
with the
your
road.
job.
Sort out this problem.
Do your job.
There are
indeed.
those who apply that every single day. And they encounter these problems every single day.
Indeed.
Yes.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The
Very
Situation.
good morning to you and thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room. This is the second hour of the show. We begin the show at 6 a.m. and we conclude at 10 a.m. every weekday morning on SpiceFM, online, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. And we are now on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. A very good morning to our audience on TV. This is your radio experience on TV. CT Muga, as we begin today's proverb.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless. I presume they meant your own belly.
Well, whose belly would they be referring to if not my
somebody
own?
else's. Do not allow
To
your
each-
neighbor's belly.
To each their own belly.
All right. Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Yes.
Higher. Let's talk about bellies in this time of COVID-19. So Friday, the president comes up with the measures. Not comes up with. The president announces the measures that are to be followed during this time to contain the spread of COVID-19 in this third wave. Among those measures, of course, is cessation of movement. And he says, look, here it is. We are seeing rapid infection rising. So what we need to do is contain movement. And because these 5 counties are where the disease is basically the highest in terms of infection, let us say that this is going to be declared a disease zone and it shall be a one zone where people shall not come in or out. Then there are other measures of, okay, let's stop SGR, let's stop flights, let's stop people moving in, into and out of. Let's reduce the number of people who go into meetings. Let's avoid as much as possible interactions by also saying that eateries, you shall not sit down and eat. You shall not have a drink at a joint. You shall only do takeaway service. Reminiscent of last year, which had a huge impact on one sector, especially the hospitality sector. We're talking about hotels, tourism hotels, other hotels. We're talking about the entertainment industry. We're talking about the bars, restaurants, pubs and restaurants. All of them combined make the hospitality sector. So just when they were starting to recover out of this, we go back in there. Is there something that could have been done to ease the pain that they are about to experience? Because they are definitely about to experience a lot of pain. Some of the leading lights in this sector immediately spoke out and said, okay, maybe there could have been a better way of dealing with this. Maybe there could be other ways in which we could actually address this, make sure that we are fighting COVID-19 together, but also make sure that we safeguard the livelihoods, especially of the people who rely on the tourism sector. Mohamed Hersi is one of them. He's the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, and he joins us now on the line because he's been talking loudly about this, and he's been very vocal on the matters that are taking place. Mohamed, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and the entire team. Warm greetings from Mombasa.
Good morning
Good
to
morning.
you. Mombasa, Kwanyesha. Nairobi is rainy this morning.
Mombasa is just calm, and there's overclouds.
Okay.
But the morning sun that we're used to is not there. So we call it is good. It is cool. We are fine. Only that business is not that good. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, immediately after the president made the announcement on the new containment measures, this had a direct impact on your industry. Just so that we get to understand from the person who is actually on the ground, what is this immediate impact?
Okay, firstly, as usual, on behalf of Kenya Tourism Federation, I'd like to thank you and for this invite. Now, tourism is about movement from point A to B to C. Tourism is about spending a night away from home.
Yep.
And touring places. Now, Nairobi is a capital city and is the hub of Eastern Africa. Now, if you decide to lock, or there's a cessation of movement in Nairobi and the environs, then it basically means that Nairobi can not feed the rest of the country. Even our national carrier is domiciled in Nairobi. So when the cessation of movement is done and the notice is so short, then it becomes very difficult because keep in mind, number one, we have international tourists who are already touring the country. Then we have domestic tourists who I really, really like to thank because they came in big time to support us. With their families, they're all across the country. Some were checking in that morning in a hotel, say in Lamu, or you're checking in somewhere in Diani, or far-flung places like Samburu, and then you're told you need to get back to Nairobi. So the notice period is virtually not there, and it has caused a lot of inconvenience and a lot of pain to people who actually heeded the same call by government to say that, look here, go support your country. Go support your your tourism industry. Now, what we would have expected is to say, you know what, folks, in the next 5 days, find your way back until further notice. That sort of thing, And then if you've got 2 days remaining of your stay, fine. You clear it and you move away. And the way it was handled for us, it's unfortunate and regrettable, but we can't talk much about what has happened now. It's more important to deal with the way forward and what are we going to do. So
I think it's important, Mohammed, to talk about what happened because, and the question that we were asking ourselves yesterday is, before such advice is given to the president, that this is what we advise you, Mr. President, let's do this, isn't there consultation with the various stakeholders, for example, Kenya Tourism Federation or KEPSA, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, which you also are a member of? Isn't there such conversation?
We have such conversations, and there were 2 documents from KEPSA. The first one, which was still a draft form, found its way to the media and to the general public, which included cessation of movement, and that was more of a document that was the previous one that we used. Then the second one that was released was the one where the cessation of movement was actually deleted or removed. Because we were not for the idea of cessation of movement. We fully support more controls. Because keep in mind, why are we here today? Why are we having a rise in the number of positive cases? Around January, February, the entire January, February, political rallies came back like there's not tomorrow. You think actually we are holding elections next week or next week or next week? Guys who are crisscrossing this country like there's no tomorrow. And of course, Kenyans came out in large numbers to listen to these politicians. And breaking all the rules that supposed to have kept us safe away from COVID. But blaming them will not help us at the moment. That's the way things are. We just need to, deal with it. But the problem is that the people who suffer the most are the ones who actually followed the COVID guidelines and protocols.
Yeah. Right.
In tourism industry, including our own guests, we sanitized, we washed our hands, we kept social distance. We did everything we could. But today, we are the ones suffering the most. And in turn, the same government will suffer because they will not be able to collect enough taxes.
Mohammed, I have to ask you, though, is it possible with the kind of, we're going into, in holiday period with children being out of school, is a time when a lot of parents would have, a lot of families then would have traveled, across the country for a moment. Would it be possible, practically and honestly, would it be possible to have this kind of travel where people are actually regarding the measures, or even with the tighter measures? Would it be possible to have a tourism period with COVID as it is?
We are not the only ones dealing with COVID. Many other countries are dealing with COVID globally, and they've taken different measures to help themselves. Firstly, we support government in all its efforts. And I honestly don't envy government in their position, because they have to take some calls that may not be palatable, that is not comfortable with the general public or the general businesses. I appreciate that. But if we are consulted more, we also have practical solutions. But you don't come in and close, let's say, Nairobi within a very short, notice. That will not work. That is an issue we've got with. Now, we have presented a memorandum to government where we've said, look here, allow the international tourists who are already in the country to complete their safaris and their itineraries. Simply because the international tourists, before they arrive here, they take a PCR test, which is not more than 96 years old.
Hours.
96 hours, old. Which means you're dealing with somebody without the virus. And remember, this test is also not cheap. In some of the European countries, you can pay as high as $250 to get that test. And you're looking probably at a family of 4, that takes you back $1,000. That's a lot of money. And tourism today is becoming quite an expensive venture. Now, somebody has landed in Nairobi, and you're telling them, you know what, Mr. XYZ, you cannot leave Nairobi and just get holed up here for the next couple of days and then go back. It doesn't work like that. Now, tourism service vehicles, let me, take up that. Our staff were all tested before we were licensed to operate again. And we also do consistent testing almost every week. My own company, we've done almost 4 tests now. The hotels I run, the same thing. And all our member associations, we do that. Let me tell you, we also calculate our own positivity rate. And we are never beyond 2%. In fact, we hover just between 1.5 and 2%, which is below the WHO numbers. We follow the guidelines and protocols to the letter.
So, Mohammed, it's possible to have these touristy activities in the country right now, while regarding all measures and maybe tightening it a little bit. It is possible to have them around the country with no major danger. Is that what you're saying?
There's nothing impossible. To answer you, it is possible. And in our proposal, this is what we've told government. We've said, can we now introduce rapid testing for the domestic traveler? And let me tell you, so many of our clients are saying, you know what, give me the test. I've already done the test elsewhere. I can do it again. I want to go with my family to Diani. I want to go with my family to Mombasa. Please test me. And what will that do? Overnight, we'll get more Kenyans getting tested. And we'll even have a bigger, result in terms of the population numbers that have been tested. And that's a win-win. Instead of saying, you know what, nobody can enter, nobody can leave Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that. If it happened in March 2020, I would say yes, because we did not know much about the virus. But 1 year down the line, we know so much about the virus that we cannot continue using the same formula that we used in 2020 a year ago.
Unfortunately,
An antigen test for it.
Sorry, please go ahead, Mr. Hirsi.
The rapid test takes less than 15, 20 minutes, and it's between 96, 98% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
It's good enough, It's just like the HIV ELISA test that you carry out, the rapid test. So here we are saying close everything. Now, if we say, look here, for the domestic travelers, please subject them to that and let them board the aircraft. Because when we say we are requesting the airlines that operate out of Wilson to take the tourists to the Mara, remember, a tourist doesn't have to be a Caucasian. A tourist is anyone who is traveling. Even that aircraft cannot be filled up by the international visitors only. We also need the domestic traveler.
Mm-hmm.
So subject the domestic traveler to that simple test, and they will be allowed to travel. They can do the test the previous day. Now, what Ministry of Health needs to do is to come up with a foolproof system that once you've done the test, there is a barcode, and it's not just a piece of paper that anybody can print and sign, which is exposed to abuse. And you know what? Business will be able to operate. When we do that, only serious people who want to travel are the ones who are going to say, you know what, I want to travel. If you want to go and see your farm in Nyeri or to do some business in Nyeri, you should be allowed. If you are able to do the test and you can move out of Nairobi. What I will imagine, and this, we need to be radical in our thinking. The roadblocks where we have the policemen. Alongside those roadblocks, why don't you invite the laboratories, be it Lancet, be it Good Life, and you say, you know what, you want to go to Nyeri? It's that bad? Okay, fine. Go do the test. And on the spot, somebody will say, yeah, let me carry out the test. Number one, you're helping these pharmaceutical companies. People are in business. You'll allow Mr. Kama also to go to Nyeri, or Ochieng to go to Kisumu as well. Instead of saying, you know what, we are locking you back, and if you're outside Nairobi, you'll be in problems. You will not be allowed back in. Now, that is where we have a problem. Remember, it is 13 months since the virus came to Kenya. And surely we can handle it in a better way.
Actually, the unfortunate thing is that if you're referring to the practice that we have seen in the recent days, it seems to be the practice all over the world. It's not just in Kenya. Somehow, much as we know a great deal about the virus, there's a great deal more that we actually don't know. And the moment the variant and the variants and the story of the variants came into being, you see, Nairobi has this problem. It's a hub. It's a travel hub for people within the continent. It's a travel hub for people who come out of this continent and want to go to other parts of Africa. So the likelihood of variants coming into the country, because remember, the virus doesn't travel on its own. It doesn't have a boarding pass. It doesn't get onto a plane. It boards with the individuals who come into it. So Nairobi, unfortunately, is in a position where it is likely to be a very serious incubating center for the virus. Secondly, if you look at even the country, the whole country coalesces around Nairobi. People from all over the other counties will come to Nairobi, in and out of Nairobi. Nairobi is the one place everybody comes to in and out of more than any other place, even as they go into other places. I agree with you completely when you say one could have chosen other methods of doing this and one could have consulted, because this is something that I can see you feel strongly about, and it is clear you people, if you are consulted, whatever advice you gave clearly wasn't taken into consideration. We had this discussion yesterday, and my colleagues were of the view that, and listen to other people, that perhaps the government doesn't know what it's doing. I was of the view that the government knows exactly what it's doing. But what I'm wondering is, to what end? Like you, to what end? But if we were to go by what has been happening in other parts of the country, the moment there is a spike, by the way, we knew of the spike, We knew it was going to happen, and even now we are being told the worst is not yet with us. The worst will come towards the end of May. We know. So under those circumstances, Mr. Hirsi, it may seem draconian when you consider what the government is doing, but unfortunately, I don't think there are very many other choices in reality.
Let me comment on the issue of the hub. You'll notice that our international airport is still open. And the reason why it's open is because you will not be allowed to get here if you have not carried out PCR test and you have the certificate, which is verified through the all the system that we put in place as a country, which is actually global under WHO.
Yes.
So anybody arriving at JKIA will be free of the virus. So we're no longer looking at outside-in virus, but right now we are at a stage of local transmission. That's why we haven't closed our airports. And when you say we are a hub, I'm afraid we are no longer the hub. Ethiopia now is the hub, where they handle 13 million tourists, or rather travelers, transiting, arriving, and name it. And they have not closed, and they're also doing the same measures. We handle now less than 7 million or even 6 million. The issue is that, yes, there are many variants, the virus is mutating, but as long as you have done the test, then it means you don't have the virus. Now, locally, we also need to put system in which is possible. And you know what? People are saying, please test us. And by the way, personally, I've done 3 tests. So there are many people willing to be tested. And if they are happy to be tested, please allow them. Even this antigen rapid testing, some countries, even in the developed world, like Switzerland and Poland, are accepting. For instance, we are handling a charter from Poland. We are now receiving a charter from Romania in Mombasa. We are expected to receive another one from Ukraine. All these people arriving in Kenya have taken the PCR test and they are holding a negative result. Then on number 2, over 70% of these arriving clients have already been vaccinated. So you're dealing with somebody who's been vaccinated, somebody who is even holding a PCR certificate, and you're telling him you cannot go around the country to tour, on tourism. Because Kenyans, I've seen in social media, was saying, but that is discrimination. But my message to them is this. That is phase 1. We are dealing with the ones who are already in the country, who already have a PCR certificate and they're negative. So the proposal we have made is, please subject the domestic traveler also to the same test. So that you can continue with commerce and we can continue with business. Because you cannot say, after 2 weeks, the virus will be gone and we can go back to business again. Well, we very well know what actually caused this particular upsurge was the political rallies. Let's be honest with ourselves. But
actually,
again,
Mr. Hirsi, it wasn't just the political rallies.
Yes.
The opening of schools contributed significantly. One of the things that is true about the virus, it doesn't quite affect young children the way it affects grown-ups. And children are actually part of the group of people who are called super carriers. But what you say about the political rallies, I agree completely. They contributed significantly. But they were not the only contributors.
They were the super spreaders. So, yes. Mohammed, as we conclude this conversation, a raft of proposals that you've made. So number 1 is allow domestic travelers, domestic tourists to undergo a test before embarking on their tour. What's the other proposal that you've made?
Actually, we do that. We strongly believe that we can salvage a bit of Easter, and it is possible. It can be done. And you know what? We'll be the first country to do something like that. And number 2, the other proposal we've made, for the international traveler, let us not inconvenience them. But number 1, it took us a long time to get where we are to try and convince people to come back to Kenya. What we want is allow them entry because, after all, JKA is open. In the absence of allowing them to move around the country, then it means you might as well close the airport because it's pretty useless. Okay? Now, we need that foreign exchange badly. Look at our shilling today. It has been beaten. It's really facing serious crisis because we're not getting forex coming in. We want to bring that forex, and people are willing to go through the test. People are willing to spend more money to come to Kenya. People love Kenya. People want to come here. Please allow them so that we can continue doing business. And number 2, the tour drivers and the personnel who are handling these tourists have all been tested. So you've got a van of 7 people. These are all people who are all COVID-19 negative.
Yeah.
And we should not throw the baby with the bathwater. Now, coming to hotels and restaurants, and this is our appeal again that we've made. We've said, please allow sit-in dining. At the moment, we've stopped all that, including freestanding restaurants on high street. Please allow them also to have sit-in dining, where you can go and have your lunch or you can have your dinner, just not only takeaways. Because these same establishments have also put on very stringent measures, okay, when it comes to dining, social space. You can even go to basic Javas, go to basic cafeterias. You'll see it, let alone the classified hotels. Now, let me ask you this. If it is safe to go shopping, and you're virtually brushing shoulders with people in the aisles as they're shopping, you're lining up, your shopping is being touched by that shop attendant. Every single item you have purchased, you have a cashier who is touching every item you purchased. Yet nobody is talking about supermarkets. Nobody is talking about that cashier being tested whether it's positive or negative.
The
and they're continuing as business as usual. Oh, yes, absolutely. So why are you saying that you can do business in Wakulima market where traders are just running over each other? But you say, you know what? Going to Java will be a problem.
Those traders cannot go to their kibanda to eat.
Absolutely. Those are some of the things we are, and then they go out and in all those kibandas that have no regard for any So I think,
Mohammed,
we need to be careful.
Stay on the line a bit longer. I know you have another meeting coming up, so just stay on the line a bit longer as we take this break.
You still have time.
All right. Let's take a break then at 29 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are on SpiceFM, we are online, and we are also on KTN Home, speaking with Mohammed Hersi, the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Out of the break, we'll also be speaking with one of the legislators, a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly, Shakil Shabir. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say.
Thank you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
All right, light rain continues coming down in Nairobi. 18 degrees, it'll go to highs of 25 today. We will see highs of 23 in Nyeri. Rain showers also this morning at 16, down to lows of 15. It's cloudy at 17 in Nakuru, highs of 27. Highs of 24 in Eldoret. It's sunny. And light rain in Kisumu at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega is also raining this morning at 20. It'll go to highs of 26. Some parts of Mombasa is raining right now. 26, highs of 32. 32 the high also in Malindi, and light rain at 29. 19 and rain showers in Kampala this morning, highs of 23. Rain showers in Dar es Salaam at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 12, highs of 23. 33 will be the high today in Lagos. It's mostly clear now at 27. And Kinshasa, it's raining at 22. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, so a lot of the traffic that we see today is because of the weather conditions. Kikuyu inbound is wet, foggy, so the roads are slippery this morning, and there's limited visibility, so please keep your headlights and fog lights on so that you don't get into any trouble. All right, coming off of Jogo Road into the city, it's slow as you approach Landys Road, but not too terrible. It's moving, however, without too much of an issue. Let's come off of Thika Road. It starts right around Pangani. Before that, it's not too bad. It's not raining for most parts of Thika Road, so it doesn't have too much of an issue. But the traffic is a bit slow, especially as you're trying to get to the Globe Cinema overpass. All right, Wangari Maathai Road is an option for you this morning. Not too much of traffic anywhere else. Coming off of Limuru Road, just past the village market, is also smooth as you're trying to get to the city. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch through most of the day. Text us as well on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. With you in the room this morning, like every morning, is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. Joining us on the line is Mohamed Hersi, the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. We're asking what the hospitality sector would require in terms of support during this lockdown. Hersi tells us that a number of proposals that you've already come up with. Number one is allow domestic tourism and domestic travel by just ensuring that there is PCR testing that takes place for domestic travelers, or even random testing, rapid testing. Allow international tourists who already arrive at JKIA with a COVID negative certificate to continue into other parts of the country. This had been a communication that had come up even from other airlines. But the KCAA yesterday issued another statement clarifying that no. Flights domestically into or out of the one zone of the 5 counties shall not take place. Okay, the other proposal that you've just been telling us, Mohammed, is with regards to restaurants and other eateries, and you're recommending a sit-in dining. Now, if we do that, how are we really going to be fighting COVID-19? So yes, we cannot say that because Wakulima market traders are mingling freely in Wakulima market, then we should allow the same traders to go and sit at a restaurant or at an eatery somewhere and eat. Surely we should be taking some measures at some point.
Eric, as a tourism industry, we've taken all the measures. Today, if you go to any hotel, you realize that we practice social distancing to the letter. All the staff and all our guests are masked up. You will notice that there is hand washing stations right at the entrance. In fact, a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants had to change their setup. We never used to have washing stations unless you go to the washroom. All that is now in place. So if other sectors of the economy are operating, and I gave you the example of supermarkets, I'm giving you the examples of the vegetable market, or let's even go to the bus station and the Matatu terminal. That is why, as a tourism industry, now we are actually requesting the government, can they start doing smart testing? Because we don't have all the money to test everybody. Let's do the testing by sector-wise. And you tell us, this particular week, the tests are conducted, well, let's say 3,000 or 4,000 sampling. This is the positivity rate from supermarket staff. This is the positivity rate for the hotels and restaurants. And this is the positivity rate for the Matatu terminal at the Tirum or Nyamakima. At the moment, we don't know. We are just shooting in the dark. But I'll tell you for free that hotels and restaurants classified who have all signed up and who have all been licensed again to operate and using the 42-page guidelines and protocols that we worked with government to implement that has been copied by other East African countries is the least place that you're going to catch the virus. I can tell you that for free. And all we are saying is, let us not be the guys who always been thrown under the bus, for heaven's sake. Not because we are careless. All you were saying is that we've done all the measures. I'm just giving you the example of supermarkets right now.
Let's take the example Mr. Hirsi, do I hear you to be saying that you actually feel like you're being punished for doing the right thing?
Actually not being punished. The thing is that people may not realize the impact because the people who are affected is tourism and travel. When you say cessation of movement, the supermarket is still open. The matatu is still moving from one estate to the other, packed, and they're packing people like sardines. It's an issue of enforcement, let's face it. And also Kenyans. Why will you go into a matatu that's supposed to take 30 people and you've been packed there, 20 of you, and you're accepting? And I am telling you for free, and I can bet, if we did today test on the matatu crew, the positivity rate will be so high that you'll be told when you're getting into this matatu, you stand a 50% chance of catching the virus, because they have not taken the measures that we have taken.
So why do you think then that the tourism sector is usually number one? Because, the assumption is that when you hear tourism, you think Mombasa and where the beach is and then where safari is. But then you're looking also at the hospitality sector as well, restaurants, bars and such. Why do you think that is the first port of call when it comes to a tightening of measures that the government goes to? Why do you think so?
You see, I don't think really the government is really targeting hotels per se, but because you said cessation of movement, how do you get to a hotel? You have to move.
Mm-hmm.
You see? But the supermarket and all these other places are listed under essential services. They will still get their cooking oil and unga or sima through those road barriers because it's essential services. But for travelers, we are dealing with human beings. So we are saying, if a pass can allow commodities go through those barriers, then for heaven's sake, let's test the people who also want to travel to go and stay in hotels.
To go across
because
the
the
barriers.
stuff have been tested. Yeah, oh yes. So that we can allow these people to travel and continue doing business.
In addition
And it's
to
possible.
In addition to
It's
your proposals,
possible. Yeah.
there could be other proposals that would come in terms of financial support, like looking at last year and the stimulus package and the money that had been extended to the hospitality sector. First of all, I don't know how many of the players in the hospitality sector have been able to access these funds of the stimulus package. Was it 2 billion shillings or was it 10 billion shillings that was made available to the sector?
Those 3 billion came down to 2 billion, but what I like to say is that close to about 60-70% are the ones who've been able to access the funding. For instance, one of the conditions is for you to access the fund, you have to have majority shareholding, 51% Kenyans. We have a lot of companies here that may not necessarily have 51%, but they've been in this country for the last 30, 40 years. They employ Kenyans. They've been taxes to Kenyan government, but they've just been denied because we've said 51% has to be Kenyan, shareholders. But you know what? We are not even asking for financial support right now. We are not even asking for that. All we are saying is please give us enabling environment. That's all we are asking. And we will be able to contribute more to the economy. Keep in mind that our economy itself is not doing well. If we were in a general ward, now we've just been pushed to the high dependency unit. And all we are saying is that just allow us to operate, but operate within a particular framework so that you don't lock down and you don't say cessation of movement and there's no leeway whatsoever, even when we have such systems in place. And a good one, I've told you, we are allowing international travelers who are getting into the country because a year ago, we didn't have PCR testing. Now we have. That's why international tourists are able to arrive here. Now, if they can get here and you've allowed them in here, why are you not allowing them to fly to the Mara and leave some dollars behind? That's what we are saying. And then another thing that we are asking for is vaccination of tourism players. We are in the front line. And one of the ways to get the confidence of the international traveler today, and even our domestic travelers, if somebody said, my entire airline staff have been vaccinated, you feel confident. And there are several countries that have come forward and say, you know what, first line, we're actually giving priority to tourism players. And let me tell you this, when we are vaccinating a nurse or a clinical officer, and we say they are in the front line, do you know those guys are already in PPEs? Do you know a hotel employee who is a room steward handling a lot of wet surface doesn't even have that kind of protection? So who is more exposed, a hotel employee or a nurse who is working in a hospital environment? Or a waiter who is handling the plate that you've used that's all wet? So why is it that we are saying a nurse is a frontliner while a waiter is not? Yet a nurse is actually protected because she's actually fully kitted in
Well, in
PPE.
PPEs.
So what you're saying, actually, hotel employees and all these check-in counters by airlines, those people
They're
are
all frontline
seriously
workers.
those are frontline workers.
Mohammed-
And in fact, we don't have the benefit. We don't have the benefit of putting that PPE. You'll scare people off. Can you imagine if I'm full
Of
PPE
course.
serving you in a diner? It won't work.
Of course. Stay on the line, Mohammed. Mohammed Hersi is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Let's now bring in MP for Kisumu East constituency, the Honorable Shakil Shabir, who is a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Latte Fondu and City.
Good morning.
And
Morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Now, Mheshimiwa, among the things
Thank you very
that-
much.
Thank you for joining us. Among the things that we want to talk about, and we've been talking about, is what is it that the government can do to cushion the vulnerable during this time? Now, with this second stringent lockdown, what is it that the government can do? Now, you sit in Parliament. A big part of the role of Parliament is taxation, or even offering relief. So, is there a conversation that's already happening within your committee members or other arms of the National Assembly looking at what can be done?
Yes. We've not had a specific sitting on this right now, but when they wanted to pull back the relief back in December, we were most upset about it because we felt that as a finance committee, we felt that there is no short-term solution to this particular long-term problem. So, and then we put the government did have some tax reliefs and some other economic stimulus packages, but that hardly took less than 6 months or whatever, and it was pulled back. The situation that we feel right now is that having come now to a stage 3, I think the third outbreak, what we would want to suggest, and we're looking at it to call a special sitting, and I'm asking our Finance Committee Chairman, Honorable Wanga, if she can call a meeting on Zoom, that we recommend that the tax measures that took place earlier in the year 2000 should be returned. The VAT should go back down. Although in the truth of it, though VAT went down, the cost of goods never did go down. But the other one, which is very major, is that the fuel prices, the ERB, which was put up just recently, there's been a great amount of concern as to why that fuel price went up, and that was to raise taxes. So I think those are the sort of things that we need. The other one, of course, we are finding, which has come back with a venom, is the Credit Reference Bureau. They have now started blacklisting a lot of small-time loans. I think that was a very effective one way of trying to get funding back on. Not saying that you don't pay the loans, but the blacklisting was one which was a bit of a relief. Likewise with the banks, the bigger players like the tourism industry, etc. They were also given the bank was also asked to give relief on repayment of loans for a 6-month period. Or was it 3 months? The banks made a lot of noise about it, but the government insisted, and we did get that relief, but that went only for a short time. Now, those are the sort of things we would like. I mean, the bigger hotels and the bigger players who are in fact employing a number of people. If they have
practically, Shakil, what is the probability of, number one, you getting your word out to the committee getting a moment so that this can actually be discussed by the National Assembly to address this is an immediate issue. Is it possible for Parliament to actually convene in these times of COVID say, in the next 2 weeks to actually discuss these things?
You see, the convenient. Okay, we are going on recess. Nothing stops us from communicating, meeting on Zoom. We've had Zoom meetings before, and that's where things can take a change. Now, let's not be negative about this. Let me, or rather pessimistic about this. I want to give you an example of how things happened on very quickly. There was a UK-Kenya trade deal, if you remember.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, we remember it.
On Thursday morning, was it a Thursday or something? We were meeting on. We were called. We had a breakfast meeting with some civil society. That is the economic group. We are called an we have a special economic group led by Honorable Jude Jomo. There were 6 of us. We met in the morning. We were given this thing. We took this thing through to the speaker. It was meant to have come on a special sitting. It was meant to be in the afternoon to be confirmed. We stopped that. We then had it worked out for we had 2 weeks of hard work on it. Now I think it's possible. We have the economic stimulus group that we, as I said, which is our very short, sharp attack group, where we would want to take this, and I'll be speaking to our chair, Honorable Jude Jomo, and others. There's a very strong group there: Jude Jomo, KJ, Esther Posares, and a very, very active group. And then, of course, our finance committee is also very active, and we'll be talking to our chair to see what we can do. I think the issue really is it's not going to take place in the next 1 week or so, but I think this issue of calling the whole thing and getting tax relief and other economic relief packages on board is something that we should do and we must try.
Sure. Mwashimwa, I mean, listening to Mohammed Hirsi this morning and talking about things that we don't need in 2 months. We need these solutions now. This relief is understood, but this relief is needed now. These conversations need to be taking place, and even if it's a place where you are giving people some kind of hope, it needs to go beyond having a conversation. So, from where you are looking at it, is this a conversation that's going to be had, or is this something that's going to be done in terms of solutions or things that can be provided for Kenyans who are in need of it today?
The conversation has been continuing. It hasn't stopped. If you talk about the finance committee, that conversation, every time we meet, the first thing we are talking about is what we're going to do about the cost of fuel, what we're going to do about this tax hikes back. So the conversation is there. The situation is that we now need to zero in on because the Wananchi are complaining. Our tax department are saying we haven't got money and we must raise the money. I think there has to be some sort of rationale, and that's where I was thinking where the president was able to make a statement in the morning. And things took place in the evening. That is because the president has those mechanisms.
I'm not sure whether you heard what Mr. Hirsi was saying, but if you listen, if you did, what he's saying is rational. It is easy to understand. Now, what can a committee such as the one that you are in do to help people like Mr. Hirsi and the organization, the people he represents?
Now.
Yeah. What can you do?
Now, you see that now we have a committee on that. We work on committees, unfortunately, and we work on. We have a committee. Finance committee used to take care of tourism as well. But I think the best thing that we can do now, as I said, is our special economic caucus that we have, which crosses over a number of committees. And I think after our telephone call is over, I'll be talking to our chair to see how we can kickstart that one we are to meet today to discuss the issue of the recess. And in that discussion this afternoon, I think some of us are going to say we don't want a recess, or if there is a recess, let the committee work continue. I don't have an answer for you right now in saying that if the finance committee gets up today and says we want a reduction of VAT, we want a reduction of PRB, it's not going to happen in a week.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, as we want to take a break and say goodbye to Hersi, but Hersi has a comment that he'd like to make.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Assalamu alaikum, Mheshimiwa. A very quick one. Very good, thank you. Parliament has a big role to play, and I agree with you. You can do a lot of your deliberations virtual, and I think the country today is in a crisis that National Assembly should actually lead us and sort things. Quite a lot of things can be sorted. I'll give you a very simple example, and this is not about tourism only. This is about the entire economy. Today, fuel is one of the biggest components of the cost of doing business in this country and globally.
Yep.
And because of the Suez Canal problem, you can clearly see that fuel is already going up. Over 60% of our fuel actually goes to levies and taxes. And this is actually the duty of Parliament, because Parliament went ahead and increased something like petroleum development levy, which was less than a shilling. It actually 0.40, which was 40 cents. It jumped to 5 shilling and 40 cents. And Mheshimiwa, that particular levy was supposed to cushion Kenyans in times of hiked crude oil prices going up. You're holding, if I am not wrong, close to 11 billion shilling in that fund. Have you guys asked, what have we done with that fund? That is what you should be discussing at Parliament. And number two, the thing that you can do overnight, in my opinion, is to reduce these taxes. Because when you look at neighboring countries and you look at other countries, for instance, excise duty alone takes 22 bob out of that. Then we've got road maintenance levy, everything put together. Government will take the easy option, increase taxes and levies, hoping you'll collect more. You know what happens? Production slows down because of the high cost of fuel. And what happens? You'll collect less. Suppose these levies were reduced by even 40%. Government may feel that they have lost, but you only lost on paper. Because what will happen is that you are jump-starting the economy. You are helping the economy. That particular business that stopped operating will now start operating. That Kenyan who could not afford something will certainly start buying. And then all of a sudden, we start moving again. Because next door Ethiopia have got when you look at their taxation levels, is so low. That is why my cousins in Moyale are crossing over to Ethiopia to fuel at less than 60 shillings. Ethiopia is not an oil-producing country. It's a landlocked country. Let's go back to the levies, and Mheshimiwa, that is within your control, because it's the same you people in Parliament who passed those bills. You can go back to Parliament again and change them, because today we are in uncharted waters, and we can no longer continue operating like we used to. We now have COVID, which does not know any class. It's affecting everybody, and it's just messing up everyone.
Very well said, Mohamed Hersi. Mohamed Hersi is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Asante sana for joining us this morning. We've been having him since 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. We hope to host you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed.
Time for a break. 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. We are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, so 4 minutes to 8. We still have Mheshimiwa Shakil Shabir on the line. So, Mheshimiwa, you've heard from a member of the industry. And it's true. I mean, this is about taxation.
Yes. Taxation is something that has to be, the beauty about any taxation. It needs to be robust. It has to have some sort of logic to it. You cannot have one tax today, then you stop it, then you start another one. Taxation has a long cycle for it to take effect.
And yet it has been like that with this current parliament and even the previous parliament. So what can be done today to address this issue?
As I know it's a difficult question, but let me try and simplify it. Do you know of any country in the world that has actually jump-started its economy by taxing the living daylights out of its people?
No, we have not, and I don't think that. You see, the thing. What I want to say is here. We have been guilty of being captured by executive. I'll be very blunt with you that we have been guilty of being captured by executive. We should not have met we should not have been called on a special committee meeting in December and reversed all the gains all the tax reliefs that we put together in one afternoon, not even one afternoon, about 20 minutes. Whereas what I'm trying to suggest to you is that we as far as our structure is concerned, we are using very short-term measures, and it is somebody with a short-term vision is leading this economy, and leading it from the point of view of let's reduce the VAT today, and the price of goods will come down tomorrow. It's not true.
It almost sounds as if you're saying your hands are tied, Mheshimiwa, and that there's nothing that you can do. Yes. Is that the case, really? That you're saying that, are you shackled to some kind of loyalty to the executive, whereby you see things that are even going wrong and you can't do anything about it? Really? Is that what we are saying? That members of the National Assembly don't have the might to actually fight for the people?
You know, what we do is we talk. What is we go and debate. Now we've debated, and I'm saying to you, don't give up, because we have a special economic caucus, which I have more faith in right now than for us to call a full-fledged finance committee meeting. But I have great faith in the finance committee meeting and our chair. And I do know that when we do call that particular meeting, that meeting we will then call the Minister of Finance to come and explain to us. But these are things that will take a bit of time. You know what I would like to say is tomorrow we are going to call for this, and day after tomorrow the VAT is going to go down from 18% down to 13%, and the fuel tax ERB is going to reverse those returns. The Credit Reference Bureau is now going to be given instructions. That is quick. Given instructions that you need to sort yourself out. The banks are now going to play ball with us, with the economy. We are going to have as you said, there was 10 billion shillings that was put aside also for relief for the elderly and the poor. I don't even know what that 10 billion went. Nobody even bothered asking about it later. This issue that
that's the job of the National Assembly to also audit and find out. Mheshimiwa, thank you for joining us today. We hope to have a conversation again with you shortly.
You must understand the fact of the issue is this. And let me repeat this. Parliament cannot be continued to be taken hostage by executive. I think I've spoken to you off record, and I'm saying that we cannot really be induced to do certain things just because the executive said so. And we're told, okay, let's now go and have a good Christmas. I think this is not possible, and I think we must take the blame for this very strongly and head on. That we have failed, and me specifically as a member of the Finance Committee have failed. And our chair and us, all of us, we feel that. And the issue is, I wish one of the times even this finance committee was also put on air.
Mheshimiwa, you're not getting away with this one that lightly. Just admitting and hoping that we'll forgive you and let it go. We will not today. Not today.
Do not forgive us.
We will not forgive you. We'll hold you accountable for this, especially when it comes to next year.
Next year, but let's talk about this year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now. And
You,
we talk about
you have a role to play. Mheshimiwa Shakil Shabir, asante sana for speaking to us. We'll be speaking with you again just to hear what the Finance Committee is planning, whether you've been able to caucus the other members as well.
The moment I put this phone down, I'll be talking to my chair, Madam Mheshimiwa Wanga, and I assure you that you're going to see something is going to happen.
Thank you.
At least from our point of view.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room at 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic, and then we start a conversation with the Governor of Nakuru County, the Honorable Lee Kinyanjui.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
Okay, so let's look at traffic this morning on Mombasa Road. Still a bit slippery in some parts, but it's slowing down right around Airtel as you move out there, and then towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout a little bit as you get into the city from Uhuru Highway. Then it slows down even more. It's slippery inbound from Kikuyu, and it's foggy as well, so keep your lights up so that you can see where you're going. All right, we're looking at also traffic a little bit on Gitanga Road this morning coming out towards Lavington, and then on the other side again towards Ngong Road. So little pockets here and there. Be careful whichever way it is that you approach it. All right, let's look at more details in other parts of the country when we come back. SpiceFM KE, talk to us there or text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
The conversation
The only
happens
way
every
to
weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 Kisumu, Eldoret, 96.7, Nyeri, 90.9, 97.7 in Malindi, and Nakuru is 96.0. We'll be having a conversation with the Governor of Nakuru County, the Honorable Lee Kinyanjui, shortly. Before that, we'll hear today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like saying be useless by all means. But please, don't let the belly be the cause of your uselessness.
Be useless if you want.
If that is your choice, please carry on, but don't let it be the belly.
Okay. So, Nakuru County is one of the 5 counties that have been classified as the one zone of the disease area. And this is one of the counties where you cannot get in or get out if you are not coming from any of the other 4 counties. So you can come out of near the border with Taita Taveta, all right? Cross all the way to Loitoktok, cross over into Nairobi, cross over into Kiambu, jump over into Nakuru, because it's between, if you use the highway between Nakuru and Kiambu and Nakuru, there is Nyandarua County. And then you get into Nakuru County, go all the way to Mau Summit at the border with Kericho County. But you can't go to Kericho because of containing COVID-19. Now, also we know that Nakuru is one of the counties that over the last couple of months has been bearing some of the weight. When hospitals in Nairobi get full, people are looking for the next place that they can go to, and they end up in some of the facilities in Nakuru County. Already, Nakuru County was recording a rising number of COVID-19 cases seeking hospitalization. Now, the governor, Lee Kinyanjui, joins us on the line, and we want to have a conversation with him about what the county government has been doing to alleviate the suffering of the people, especially when it comes to COVID-19 and seeking hospitalization. He joins us on the line now. Good morning, Governor.
Morning, Eric, and I'm happy to be online today this morning.
Asante sana. Welcome to the Situation Room. If you were here in the studio, we'd have given you a hot seat. But for today, allow us to convert yours into a warm seat.
Sure.
So, Governor, Nakuru is now in that lockdown. Last year, it was the Nairobi Metropolitan. And then Nakuru was spared. This time, it's there. What has been the reaction of the residents of Nakuru County when they heard that now they are locked down?
I think it is correct to note that the reaction was not very positive, especially when you look at the business community, because lockdowns have the tendency of curtailing business, reducing working hours, completely shutting certain businesses like in hospitality and transport. But we cannot talk about the reaction without looking at what other consequence would have been there if no action was taken. And I want to confirm that when you look at the graph of infections from when the disease started in March last year, I think where we are is even much higher than where it was at the worst time last year. So indeed, there is no way that the country would have just sat back and did nothing, because unlike before, where the perception was that the disease is coming from foreigners and it could lock our airports, the disease now appears to be right in the community, and therefore actions targeting community spread was both necessary and important at that particular time. So it is true the business community is not particularly happy, but I think they are also not equally happy by the fast spread of the disease, and especially given that almost everybody everywhere can relate to a friend, a brother, a sister, a cousin, a colleague, somebody known to you who has been infected and in some cases gone as a result of COVID-related complications. So I think we are not happy for sure, but these are both necessary and important actions that the state took to safeguard the interest of its people.
It's true, and in fact, the county government of Nakuru has lost some of your very senior people as well, and it's our opportunity now to actually pass our condolences to your government as well for the loss of your chief officer in charge of health, Mr. Kingori, who passed away. He was one of the people who were very active in terms of working out the measures that can be taken in the healthcare facilities to address COVID-19 and the effect of COVID-19. Now, what is the situation like in the health facilities in Nakuru County with regards to people seeking hospitalization, your bed capacity in isolation wards and in HDU and ICU?
Okay, thank you. So first, it's good to confirm that, yes, last week we actually buried two of our senior colleagues. One is Mr. Chebuchok in our political office, and the other one is Dr. Kingori in health. And all died because of COVID-related complications. And since then, a few other officers had also turned positive, although their cases were not very severe, and some have recovered and gone back to work. But the severity of this third wave is unlike what we saw in the past. So it was necessary for us, even as a county, to close some of our offices, which we have already started. With respect to the state in our hospitals, I think first, as I heard you mention, Nakuru, just like maybe Nairobi, tends to get a lot of flow from other counties that are around us. Whenever they have a problem, they will bring their patients to the next big town or city around them. So it is true that sometimes in Nakuru you'll find that maybe 40% of the population you're dealing with that is sick is not from Nakuru, and therefore also closure of borders helps to address that particular matter. Then we must say that in our coordination efforts, we have come up with a program working with both the private hospitals and also the public hospitals. And the big issue around this time is the provision of oxygen, because a lot of the patients who have turned positive will tend to require oxygen almost immediately. And now the focus has gone towards now beds, provision of beds, and also oxygen. And I think for now we can say we are relatively okay, but numbers can change drastically. And that is why we have started our campaign on prevention, supporting also government on the containment measures, and also more importantly on vaccination. So I think our three-pronged approach is prevention, respect the containment measures, and then also work on the prevention. For oxygen, allow me to confirm that we do manufacture our oxygen in our hospital at level 5 in Nakuru, which we use in all our other facilities. And although I must say we have increased the bed capacity, the truth is there's no hospital, even country, that can be able to meet once COVID is on full swing. So I think the idea is to keep increasing. And I think as a county, we are also in that process. Our ICU beds are about 22, but we are also working with private hospitals because, as we know, when it comes to healthcare, there are no private or public. We all must work together. And that partnership has been very useful in the last few days.
Your Excellency, what would be the ideal number of ICU beds in an ideal situation that you think a county such as Nakuru ought to actually have?
I think it's good to confirm that the nature of this disease is very unpredictable. Actually, when I look at the data, just some 6 weeks ago, we were actually very low. Then there's a very sharp increase. So ordinarily, without COVID, 22 is a very good number. Actually, let's also be honest. Prior to this COVID, most of our public hospitals did not even have a single ICU. That's across the country, not just Nakuru. So 22 is a good start for public hospitals, but also the private have also increased their capacity. But given the trend of the disease and the unpredictable nature of days to come, we think working with around 50 for Nakuru would be a good idea. And to that extent, I've already started working on Naivasha, our Naivasha level 4 hospital, to try also and put maybe another 10 or so beds to address those acute cases that come and require immediate redress.
Governor, one of the issues that has come about, I mean, looking at some of the things that you're doing now, obviously it's not a wish in the sky and then these things drop. It's obvious that, funds are going to this. And one of the reasons why your counterparts in other counties have said they are not able to do this is because of the funding. How are you being able to maneuver? How are you being able to work this out? Because even if you're adding 5 ICU beds, for example, it's a considerable or it's a significant addition. How are you able to do this without extra funding?
I think this is a question that requires immediate national attention because the nature of COVID is if you have a patient who is sick, them admission on account of them not having the money. 2, even when you admit them and they are there and they incur a bill of even 200 and they cannot pay, you cannot detain them longer because they need that bed to be taken up by the next patient. So counties are having a very huge burden that is going to bear adverse effects on agriculture, roads, and other areas. But I think for Nakuru, if I may speak specifically about Nakuru, the idea is obviously we are constrained, that is a fact. But what we've tried to do through our supplementaries is to get resources from other areas that are not under emergency right now and focus all our efforts on health mitigation. And it is for that reason that I've said we want to add ICU, for example, in Naivasha and a few other places. And maybe also add a few ambulances because now there gets a time when if you put all your ambulances on COVID issues, then a patient, a mother delivering will not be able to get service. Another accident happening somewhere may not be able. So we may also need to increase our ambulances and so on. So I think right now the next conversation we expect is that after the president declared the lockdown and where we are on this COVID mitigation, the next thing must be a rescue package for the counties. so that even as we waive, for example, certain fees, because it is not possible for county to continue receiving normal revenues, including from bars, when those bars have closed.
Yeah.
So there must be decisions that have to be made to see how we can reconfigure the budgets and the financial aspects of running the counties. Otherwise, we'll get to a situation whereby workers are not paid, there is no oxygen, there is no medicine, and so on. And I think that would not be a very good thing. So right now, the next conversation must be around what package can we give to the counties, because about 94% of all the sick persons actually go to county hospitals. National government hospitals are probably just here in Kenyatta, Moi Referral, Mama Lucy. The rest is actually under county government. So how do we manage that equation now that you've declared this issue an emergency? That's where we are.
Your Excellency, there's something I'd like to ask. As a county, what measures are you taking to ensure that there's compliance with these COVID rules?
With respect to compliance, we are working with enforcement agencies, including our intelligence teams, our county commissioner, the police departments, the DCI. And why we need all these teams working together is because there are aspects that relate to public transport, where we need now the traffic policemen to behave. And even yesterday alone, I have received hundreds of complaints that a matatu that should otherwise carry 8 people is probably doing 15 or 18. And it defeats purpose that a person the whole day has been social distancing. And on their way home, they are cramped up in one matatu. So again, we need to work with the traffic to ensure that the issues of social distancing within public transport are enforced. We are also working with professional bodies, because we must also agree that people work during the day in certain environments. And the people who run these institutions must agree that we must also reconfigure our working environments, including our markets, including our supermarkets, and wherever you want to imagine that people go, so that the issue and concept of sanitization and social distancing is respected. And I want to confirm that through that multi-sectoral working group, we have had progress. Yes, there are challenges, but we've had significant challenges, because in terms of information, we are fed on areas where we require to improve. Then we are able to send the necessary teams to go and work. But I think the magic bullet lies in public awareness. There are no rungus enough to force people to do what they don't want to do. But once you're able to win their hearts, and this is where also the media becomes very important, for people to realize that curfew time is not, you're not going home because the policeman is going to arrest you and so on, but because you realize that it's during this social time that people often have a drink, are talking and doing those, and therefore the probability of increasing infection also goes high. So for that reason, we want to cut that social connection that has been a problem. So as long as people have not understood that, then we will have to use very heavy enforcement that may not be very... So we must also agree from the onset, the inclusion of leaders at all levels, be they religious, community leaders, elected leaders, is very critical in ensuring that the public buy-in is there, so that you feel that you owe it to yourself. And I'm happy a couple of people also called me yesterday and told me that they have reconfigured their working setup, because they have also seen the seriousness with which COVID has hit the country. So that is the approach we want to have. Yes, we want to enforce, but also we want to engage the public so that we increase the buy-in and that they become soldiers in this whole war against COVID, as opposed to them being the ones being chased and run by everyone. But human behavior is obviously complicated, and enforcement will also be equally key.
But Mheshimiwa, I agree with you when you say human behavior is complicated, but at the same time, it's actually fairly simple. I mean, one of the things about enforcement of these COVID rules is the direct impact it has on the earning capacity of most Kenyans. And this is something I'm sure you encounter on a daily basis. It isn't an easy situation that you have here. It isn't, and I don't think there are easy solutions to this. But unfortunately, difficult as it is, solutions must be found. As a county, what are you doing to help the citizens of your county deal with the economical pressures that are being brought to bear on them because of COVID?
Thank you. As you may be aware, these measures are probably just about 4 or 5 days. So we have a team that is currently sitting down to draft probable measures that would be acceptable and are also useful. And I must say, like have hinted, areas like bars and hotels that have had to close, it would be extremely wrong for you to charge them when they're not even operating optimally. And the other sectors also that would require to be checked. But maybe for us, what we thought, instead of doing a hurried, just easy gesture, we also wanted to study and also consult with the same private sector. Then in the next few days, we should be able to come up with a package on how we can help the public also go over this period. But I also wish to confirm that yes, the times are hard, but I think also the impact of you having a brother, a sister, a wife, or a son who is sick in your house is a bigger economic problem than you even imagine. So I think sometimes you have to look healthy and not having all the opportunities to make the money vis-a-vis I am sick, I'm at home, and I don't know what to do. So I think the choices we have to make are not necessarily one of working normally as if there is nothing, but one of which is the lesser evil within this whole spec. And I think for the many people we have in our hospitals, we have about 100 people, nearly 100 people on oxygen at any one time in the last few days. If that question was posed to them, I am sure you know what answer they would give you. So I think the time for caution is now, but we also need to be ingenious in how we look for ways of putting bread and butter on the table.
We're having a conversation with Nakuru Governor Lee Kinyanjui on COVID-19 and what the county government of Mombasa, Murang'a.
Nakuru.
I've just said he's a Nakuru governor. Hey. Okay.
Man, you took him to Murang'a.
It's a time for me to take a break. Governor Lee Kinyanjui is on the line. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. And as we take this break, let me just remind you about the standard jobs. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. That's jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. is a place where you can go and get your job listings, all the new jobs that have been advertised, many of them online, career advice. You can also sign up for personalized newsletters, basically saying, this is the kind of job that I'm looking for. And whenever that kind of job is listed, you get a notification either on SMS or on email, a personalized newsletter. Some of the jobs that have already been listed there are a number, and you can just go onto jobs.standardmedia.co.ke and get them. Time for a break. 24 minutes after 8. KTN Home, SpiceFM, and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice
The rain showers
FM.
continue in Nairobi at 18 degrees. It's going to go to heights of 25 today, coming down to lows of 17. Likely to have rain for most parts of today. It's also raining in Nyeri at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 15. Highs will be 27 recorded in Nakuru. Cloudy conditions at 18. 24 the high in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 17. There's a high chance of rain for later. And it continues to rain in Kisumu at 20. Highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's partly sunny in Kakamega at 21. Highs of 27. Highs of 32 in Mombasa. It's raining now in most parts. And also in Malindi at 29. Highs of 32 and lows of 27. With the rain in for most parts of today. It continues to rain in Kampala at 19. Highs of 23 and lows of 18. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 26. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. The lows will be recorded at 12 in Johannesburg today. It's sunny at the moment at 13 and it'll go to highs of 23. It's mostly clear in Lagos now at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 27. And rain showers in Kinshasa at 22. We'll see highs of 30 coming back down to lows of 22.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, so there was an accident along Gitanga Road today, right around the LSK offices, and so waiting for that to be moved. It's holding up traffic in both directions. Headed in that way, just be careful as you are because it's going to take some time to get that moved. Thika Road is looking good, guys, getting into the CBD and outbound as well. Not looking bad at all. So good vibes in terms of traffic. Kiambu Road for the first time in the history of the year. Flowing very smoothly without too much of an issue. Mombasa Road, a total opposite. The rain is coming down, and so this affects traffic, especially around the construction. Likoni Interchange is looking like a nightmare, guys. It's going to take some time to get off of this one. Headed towards the southern bypass, there's also a little bit of traffic there. Joga Road is inching along as you get to the roundabout at the city stadium, onto Landis Road and then towards industrial area. Slow, but it's moving, not too painful right now. Let's take a look in a short while and see how this all changes. Let us know if we can help in any way, or if you can help. If you get stuck or you find a good route, let us know that as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. In the room with you this morning is Ndu Oko, CT Muga and Eric Latif. Joining us on the line is Nakuru Governor Lee Kinyanjui. We're talking about the measures that the county government of Nakuru is taking to cushion the people with regards to COVID-19 and also to address the rising number of cases of COVID-19 in the country. Governor, as we were going to the break, we were talking about the kind of cushioning that your government can do to the people. We have already seen, for example, in the case of Machakos County, which is one of those that have been declared part of the one zone, the governor in Machakos has already announced the measures that can be taken. You've said that your team is out and it's looking at what kind of measures can be taken. But how can you assure the people who are watching you this morning that there's something that can be done and can be done immediately to address the plight of the people who will obviously be affected by this lockdown?
I think it's not possible to say that the counties can do everything to flatten the effects of COVID. It's not possible because nobody, not even the national government, has that kind of funding that would help anybody to stay at home, even when their job has ended.
Mm-hmm.
However, we can look for ways of creating opportunities so that even if hotels are closed, how can we help to encourage, say, home deliveries and home cooking and so on? Because ideally, people will still eat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fact. So if people will still eat, how do they eat without endangering the COVID infection issues? So I think those are the issues we need to look at, because sometimes we can be tempted into simple tokenistic sort of approach, where we say, okay, you're supposed to pay 20,000 for the whole year license, you don't pay. That's okay, but that will not put bread and butter on their table.
Mm.
So beyond just waivers here and there, I think the bigger issue is to try and look for opportunities that also exist within that lockdown space. Noting that lockdown may not be necessarily 1 or 2 months. You don't know, it could last 6 months.
Mm.
If it lasted for 9 months, what would happen to people whose jobs have completely changed. So I think our approach is more on sustainability, more on creating innovations around this period, and also encouraging those who are already working and their businesses are compliant to this COVID-19, how they probably can expand and employ 1 or 2, 3 other guys. And through that way, also we can try and reduce the hopelessness and desperation that we have in the economy.
Yeah.
But also moving forward for our counties, assuming we will have other mitigations, including buying food for the vulnerable and sharing with them. Again, opportunities we would want to give to persons who have been affected adversely by this. So we don't want to look at it from a simplistic, quick way, but maybe also to look at what each action is likely to have on the broader aspect of the economy.
I like what you're saying, Governor. I like what you're saying.
Also,
However, Governor, it's been a year. It's been a year since we had COVID-19. Last year, the whole of last year, you saw what was happening to the economy. Surely you would have expected that maybe you had a team that was already working on, should we go into a lockdown? Should this situation worsen? Let's have something in place, some ideas in place that can be rolled out immediately.
Oh, yeah, no. We already did that even in our first phase. But each phase, you see, like I said, this third wave strain is very different from the second one. And its seriousness, once it affects the body, is much more serious than the second one. So we expect these particular containment measures to be even maybe more stricter as we go on than the previous ones. However, we had a platform, and last year we even gave food to some of our vulnerable groups across some of those areas. We gave cash. Maybe it can't be enough, like I said. We also had we worked with the private sector, including Red Cross, on how to reach the most vulnerable. So we had a comprehensive approach, and I think we may not have achieved everything, but there was a significant level of success last time. So that is what we are trying to work on currently. And I must say this one mainly also affects the urban, what you call the urban poor, the people in the slums, but in the rural areas, the impact tends not to be very big because access to food and the rural economy operates on very different dynamics. So because my county has both economies, rural and urban, we also have to look for interventions that are specifically targeted to specific areas. And also working together with the private sector, because nobody can claim to have a monopoly to the answer to all these issues.
Sure. I think a lot of times when we look at some of the measures that are being put in place or what county governments then are able to do, it is unfortunately, and I say unfortunately carefully, but it is unfortunately pegged to what the Treasury will be able to release in terms of funds. And I've always been of the opinion that even in a devolved system, that counties should be able to look at own source revenue. Are there plans in place? Are there things that you can look at? Because even as you speak now about, looking at the less vulnerable, or rather more vulnerable in society, look at those who are living in slums and look at mitigation efforts to help them. This is all fund intensive. It's funds intensive. I mean, whether we like it or not. And counties right now are depending on that money that they get from Treasury. Are we going to be able to look at a time in the near future whereby there would be revenue building, creating activities within county to be able to support the efforts of county within county?
I think it's true to some extent that the dependence on treasury disbursements has been high over the years. But allow me to talk about Nakuru and say that much of our interventions also rely on our local resources, including our revenue collection, working with the private stakeholders within the county. But I think moving forward, there must be a deliberate attempt to try and ensure that the revenues are not too much dependent on the national treasury. Because the national treasury also has its own challenges, and they are part of this economy that we are also seeing is depressed. However, I must confirm that as a governor or a county for that matter, you are now choosing between two very difficult situations. Your local revenues include the license from the Mama Mboga, from that matatu, from that tuk-tuk rider, whose businesses have been adversely affected. So as you push to increase your revenue, that is the guy you'll be going to tell, bring your money.
Sure.
The bar owner whose bar has been closed, you'll be telling him, I want my license regardless. So you are caught, you want to increase your revenue, but your sources of revenue include some of those worst affected areas, including the hospitality industry. So I think it is a trade-off that one has to look at very carefully. Where you must collect, you collect, but also appreciate that now our demands for health for the next future, we don't know how long. Again, like I've said, COVID patients, you cannot detain them, you cannot refuse to treat them. So it becomes very complicated. You want more revenue, you become more ruthless to a community that has been disenfranchised, whose businesses have been closed by these restrictions. Again, you will appear to be a bit insensitive. Then again, if you leave them, your revenues go down. You are therefore unable now to cushion even those poor of the poor. So I think it is, to go to call the media and say, I've removed this license. Eventually, when you look at your revenues, you realize, 300 million has gone down. Then on the same breath, you are now being told we need oxygen in a certain hospital, we need to employ more staff, we need to get more ambulances, and all these sort of stories. So again, you are in a bit of a tricky situation. So I think it's important to look at all these issues in fullness, and also to confirm that it is unfortunate that what you may call the miscellaneous or emergency fund in counties is very small. So there's no county that today can claim to have some 300 million for emergency.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no such a county. And even when you go and give those waivers, it will have a direct impact on your revenues. Your revenues will now have direct impact even on your ability to pay salary. So do you want a situation where you see our nurses on the road again because they did not receive their salary allowances? So these are the questions when you're in a position of making decisions that you have to balance, because you otherwise end up making very sweet-sounding statements, but later on you have to pay dear. So I think that's why we said we would want a more reasoned approach.
Your Excellency, do you think, hypothetically speaking, of course, that if the share that the counties get from the national cake were increased significantly to the percentages that we've heard politicians saying they could be increased, and if the counties had more autonomy in terms of not just revenue collection, but more autonomy in terms of seeking to form partnerships, business and otherwise, with other entities. If this were allowed, or if this was a reality, do you think the counties would be in a far better position to manage their affairs than they currently are?
I have no doubt that that's the way to go. And also to confirm, in Kenya, we probably don't even need to think of increasing taxes. What we just need is higher compliance. Very few people pay the licenses, and they pay on behalf of all the others. So even if you look at the county level, assuming you're collecting a certain license, say bars, maybe 30% will pay.
Wow.
The 70 will not pay. And when they don't pay, maybe what happens is they keep oiling some guys who come to ask them whether you have a license.
Yep.
So you lose a lot of money. And so what you're saying, let's not increase taxes. Let's just make sure they are where they are, but to increase compliance. If you're supposed to pay your 20 bob, just pay it. If you go to the parking and you have to pay your 100 shillings for the car, don't agree to negotiate and pay 20 and steal the 80 from the county that would have gone to buy some oxygen somewhere. So I think there's a conversation that as Kenyans we need to really agree that the money we pay for specific services, when we don't, then tomorrow your house will be on fire and you ask for a fire engine and it will not show up.
Yeah.
Or you go to the hospital and you cannot get medicine. So all these actions have consequences. And I think this is really the conversation we need to have. But I must say greater partnerships are necessary. There are certain revenues and businesses that counties should be getting and they are not getting, including mining. And one of the biggest assets in any country is what is beneath the soil. For Nakuru, I would talk of geothermal. And I would say if Nakuru was to get part of what comes from our geothermal energy, we would be more than self-sufficient. And we've been able to pass the necessary legislation, including at the national level. And we are at the tail end in implementation of that. And once that is put in place, we can easily have maybe 1 billion more over and above what you're having. That can go towards mitigation of some of these effects that we continue to see. But there must be creativity in looking for alternative incomes for counties beyond just, the treasury one-sided approach to issues.
Mheshimiwa, how, sometimes when you're talking to someone like a governor, you're caught between Your Excellency and Mheshimiwa. So let me use both. Your Excellency, Mheshimiwa. Now, what is your approach, the county of Nakuru? What is your approach to dealing with corruption? Or should I say impunity? Because as you've correctly stated, it is the one thing that costs the county an insurmountable amount of money and an insurmountable amount of revenue, and in so doing, hampering the very thing that your government proposes it should be doing for its people.
I think the first thing is that these issues have to start from the top. If you are in an organization and you do not live by the ideals you seem to want others to live by, then it becomes a very difficult cost. So I think we've tried to set it from the onset and to try and reduce any aspects that may have wrong image also to the people working below us. But I would say that automation is the first way. Human beings are good, but their goodness ends somewhere there. So we need to automate issues so that if you want to pay your license, you don't need to negotiate with anybody. You go online, check your category, confirm how much you're due to pay, and maybe next year, a month before time, you can be reminded. So the first thing is get data. Once you get the data, this data now can be automated so that it's self-implementing. If you don't pay, again, we are trying to say that our revenue collection systems must be interconnected. Counties run water companies. They have a connection with KRA. They have connection with Kenya Power. We should run our system in a way that if I do not pay my land rates, for example, I should not be able to connect with my power or water. And that's how systems run all over the world. If you've not done this, if you come to apply for this, you'll be told first go and clear this. So I think the point you're trying to say, instead of the approach you've seen in the past where counties are employing more and more enforcement officers, more rungus, more those lorries we used to call Mariamu and stuff like that, we want more ICT-driven approach to revenues. So that if you don't do one thing, if you want to apply to start building your plot, they'll tell you, no, these are the 4 plots you haven't done. You want to do business with the county, this will not happen until you have cleared this and this and this. Just more or less in the same way at the national government, you have this certificate of compliance. You want to apply for this tender and you've not paid certain taxes, you'll be told, pay this so that we can give you a compliance for you to go on. So we are trying to implement the same now at a county level, so that we remove this human interface. So I think the first thing in terms of increasing revenues is removing human interface and judgment.
I'm sure you.
The second one that I
think. Go ahead.
The second one that I think is also equally important is also to teach citizens to know. We always find a lot of people telling us, "Oh, go to this country, you'll find this. Oh, go to this country." But in those countries, they tell us to go and see how they operate. They would never agree to part with a shilling to defeat paying any government fee, because they know by paying that government fee, my kid goes to school. I can go and get medicines. I'll go and get security. All those things are there. But here it is the opposite. It's very difficult to convince somebody not to bribe. So even when you go and park your car at 5 million vehicle, you don't want to pay 100 shillings. So I think we also need to engage the public. Not to engage the public to also appreciate that they must be the ones to say no. I'm building a house. I'm supposed to pay 100,000 for building plans and all that. But somebody now tells me I can pay 20,000 and do something. So we must also kill corruption from now what we call the demand side. Kill the demand. The people who demand to bribe also, you must tell them, this is not the way to go. Pay the 100 and demand for your services. So this is a conversation which we now call public awareness that must be there. And also to confirm that when the public sees where their money is going, their degree of acceptance and compliance goes high. So again, we want to say that as we do this, We need to have a place we can tell you, this is where your money is going.
Yeah.
This is the road we've been talking about.
Yeah.
This is the hospital. These are the medicines. These are the people we are paying. So that discussion needs to be encouraged as we move
And
forward.
how far are you with this discussion, Your Excellency?
As you're aware, I'm also having it as we speak now. But we have started it even within our department. We have started it with the public.
Mm-hmm.
And simply saying that giving a bribe is robbing yourself. Actually, you're not even robbing the county.
Mm.
It's not the county that will be sick. It is you who will be sick tomorrow. Your wife will be going to deliver, and there will be nobody to take care of them.
Mm.
A couple of years back, our workers would not be paid on time. Sometimes it would take a month. They were never sure when they would be paid. Now we can say with certainty, every 28th you will be paid. And it is not a favor. It is, you can also plan.
Yeah.
So these are the discussions we really need to have. And we need to broaden the conversation to also make everybody appreciate that by giving that 20,000, 1,000, whatever the situation, you are actually not helping the situation. You are putting us far back from where we were. And I think for me, the quick way of trying to increase taxes or the rate is a simple way of solving a very complicated issue, because with even maybe 60% compliance, we'll have a lot of money. But now, very few people pay, but pay on behalf of many others who don't pay, but instead bribe to remain afloat. That conversation must be ignited at all levels.
And we must continue. As you talk about compliance and automation of revenue collection, I can imagine that your biggest impediment to this would be your own staff. Have you encountered this, and how do you deal with that? How do you make sure that your staff are on board, that they can accept to automate and not to sabotage the efforts that your government is coming up with?
Okay, so what we did, we came up with what you're calling the Nakuru Revenue Authority, which essentially mirrors the KRA. And we want this to be a quasi-autonomous body that will collect revenue, and they will use 2% of the revenue they collect for their operations, like salaries, vehicles, rent, and all those other issues. We will employ a fresh set of people in the coming few months. And the reason we are doing this is that if you look at revenues in counties, the year to election is a very difficult year for counties because the revenues always go down, sometimes by 20%, 30%, because of lack of focus. But when you set a semi-autonomous entity there, give them targets, make sure that they are well anchored in law and all those other things, then the situation changes completely. And that is what you've seen at the national level. Secondly is that, yes, we'll have resistance from county employees, but a county doesn't have a permanent employees. If you're going against county policy for that matter, then we have ways of dealing with those sort of situations, because the county is not employed by its employees. It's the county that is employed. So who should follow the other?
Yeah.
So if we now say we'll only do that which makes them happy, and maybe they were beneficiaries, and I want to say it's not all of them. There could be a small group of people who benefit from this confusion. So confusion is a very big industry in this country, and many people would want it to exist because it benefits a few. But do we want a system that benefits a few, or one that benefits all of us? So that's why we're saying we want to automate. So at any one time, if you wanted to see your fee paying or license paying behavior in the last 5 years, just like you have CRB, you can be able to see you've been paying your obligations on time. And some of these things can also be linked to CRB. If you cannot claim to be a very responsible person when you don't meet your county obligations. So I think there are ways in which we can be able to connect with other institutions and also empower the public to appreciate the importance of meeting their obligations. And from there, I think we're going to see a semblance of order in the days to come. But I think the first arena is fighting with a mindset that perceives paying licenses or rent as a waste of time or waste of money. And I think so they're therefore ready to go all lengths to beat the system. So once you're able to convince them that it's in their best interest to work in a certain way, to behave in a certain way, and they stand to benefit, and their mother who cannot be able to go to the big hospitals will now go there and get diabetes medicine and diet advisory, then the conversation changes. So I think we want to say we cannot walk alone on this, and the public becomes a very key pillar.
And so this is not a Lee Kinyanjui-led conversation, then, from what you're saying, but that it is a systemic change and establishment that needs to come about. So that if tomorrow Governor Kinyanjui is not there, that the systems are running and these things happen. So whatever comes in place, whatever happens, emergency, COVID tomorrow, something else, that the systems have already been set up and are running smoothly so that everybody has an understanding of what's going on. And regardless of what is happening at that time, the systems will be running. Is that what we're trying to do? Or is it a character-led initiative now that if you're not there, this will not happen?
I think both ways are also correct, because even if it is institutional, it needs leadership. There must be that where did the idea come from? What's your vision? How do you plan to do it? So to that extent, I can say I believe in that. That's the way to work around that. But beyond that, also to confirm that we have enacted the necessary legislation to ensure that this Nakuru Revenue Authority now is a legally constituted entity, so that sustainability is over time. We have also said that they will not rely on funding from the county, because what would happen in subsequent years is if somebody does not want this organization to work, they just need to make sure that there's no funding, there's no salary, and before long, they wind up.
Yeah.
So we have put a self-implementing mechanism in this particular bill and this particular authority. In the recruitment, we'll also get the best professionals who can be able to move up to the next level. So I see opportunities for growth. I see opportunities for sustainability. And as I said, it is not anchored on me. The money that comes does not come to me in person. It comes to the organization. And how it is used, again, it is subject to public scrutiny. So the only thing I can take credit is just the vision and the dream. But the implementation and the future sustainability belongs to the people of Nakuru.
If we look at this enforcement that is now required of COVID-19 protocols that were announced by the president, one of them is saying that Nakuru is part of the 5 counties that have now been locked in. But there has been complaints about traveling from Nairobi to Nakuru or vice versa, where many of the traders from Nakuru County who would like to access Nairobi are having difficulty crossing the gap there that is Nyandarua County on the highway. Has there been a conversation to address that particular anomaly?
I think it's good to confirm the first few days of any exercise of this nature will have these short-term teething challenges. But in the next few days, we are harmonizing with our security agencies to ensure that businesses that rely on supplies, a person who works in Nakuru and maybe his family is in Nairobi, we're trying to look for modalities while also ensuring that misuse and abuse is also not allowed. So in the next few days, all those things will be clarified, because we have a joint working team together with our security forces and the national government and administration offices. And I'm sure we are alive to all those issues. We have courier companies that require to take. We have the medicines. We have all those things that require to be taken. But I must also say that the president's declaration was also very well thought. If you are going, say, to Nakuru, why would you be going if you don't live there? It's because there's a church function, there's maybe a funeral of a family person or friend that you know, a seminar, and all those sort of issues. Or a political matter for that matter. So the moment you ban all political meetings, the moment you say there's no hotel sittings unless you're doing a takeaway, the moment you say funerals are only for 50, it means it's only immediate family members and the church. And even colleagues and neighbors are actually exempted in the context of that. And again, when you say you only need 3 days to bury, it means the long, protracted maombolezes have also been removed. Again, when you say there are no political activities, there's no BBI, and maybe even the issue we need to look at is these by-elections that are ongoing, because they also encourage a lot of interactions and so on. But the point is, But if you look at those restrictions that the president gave out, they are very well thought out. And even if you wanted to go to a place, you will realize most likely it is closed. The people are working from home. And that means even if you go to the offices, you will not find them. Like for us in Nakuru County, we've decided to close for the next 1 month as we observe the circumstances. So if you wanted to come to my office, you will not get me. So I'm just trying to say that beyond the physical barriers, because Kenyans are now looking a lot into these physical barriers, and the physical barriers are just to help us, that areas that have not recorded very high numbers are not also endangered by this free flow of people. And I think if Kenyans also appreciate that and don't also try to beat the system and want to appear very smart when you succeed in so doing, then I'm sure we will be able to achieve our goal, which is to really reduce the infection rates.
Governor Lee Kinyanjui, thank you very much for speaking to us. 1 minute. Send a message to the people of Nakuru County, especially now that there is lockdown and we are dealing with the rising number of cases of COVID-19 in the third wave.
I think my message to the people of Nakuru is to note with great concern the high number of cases that we've recorded in the last 3-4 weeks, and also to note that within those 3-4 weeks, about 62% are actually men, which also indicates the nature of their risk appetites. And also to note that from schools, when the schools closed, also we saw a lot of the kids who came, and actually some of them have contracted from school. The kids are not affected themselves in the sense of severity, but they become also potential spreaders to their mothers and grandfathers and so on. So we expect the next few weeks to be very critical, and therefore we require everybody's cooperation. We require you to be a keeper of the other one. If you realize that your colleague is doing certain things that actually endanger you, I think it's upon you to also ensure that you have a bit of that peer pressure to do the right thing. And also to confirm for our hospitals, we will try to do the best we can, but no country, no matter how developed, even New York itself would not cope with the high numbers that came late last year. So no hospital can be able to get all the 2.4 million people who are in Nakuru cannot be admitted in our hospital. So our first line of defense is prevention. And for our elderly, the 55 and above, I think if it's your parent, your brother, whoever it is, please make sure we insulate these populations, because we have found that the disease is particularly unforgiving to the elderly, the hypertensive, and also the diabetic. If you have any combination of these two or the three of them, then you know you're in high category. And lastly, also, we are rolling out our vaccination. And even yesterday, we started in some of the areas. We only have 24,000, which is a very small number compared to what we really should be doing. But I think at the national level, we are also having conversations on how we can increase the vaccinations available to the rest of the population. And the end of the lockdown is directly tied to what percentage of the population we can be able to vaccinate. So the sooner we get to the 30% mark, and you can look at a 50 million population, you want to look at 30%, we're talking about 15 million people. So there's need for us to act with speed so that we can break the cycle of infections.
Asante sana, Governor Lee Kinyanjui, for joining us this morning. We hope to host you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep it right here. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, so what does it look like on Mombasa Road? Still inching along, and this is just past General Motors out towards the Nyeri Street and roundabout. It's moving very slowly, but it's also raining on most parts. Most parts of the city, it's raining this morning. As you get to the roundabout at Uhuru Highway, that's the Nyeri Street and roundabout is going to slow down some. All right, Likoni, Lunga, those parts of industrial area still slow because there is, construction going on there as well. The Likoni interchange then joining Mombasa Road, joining the southern bypass, it's also slow. Coming off of Thika Road, it's fantastic. It's a driver's dream, like we've said, and it's looking good right now. Coming out of Westlands, it's a bit foggy. Kikuyu area, right around there, be extremely careful because the roads are slippery and visibility is low, right? That's what it looks like on the roads this morning. Eastern, Western, looks kind of like the same. Not much in terms of traffic, but let's be careful all the same, all right? SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get to us on Twitter. Text through the day on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Very good. 2 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues. We've heard from Governor Lee Kinyanjui. Next, let's go back into what is it that our parliament can do, to cushion the vulnerable in the society in these times. But let's begin with today's proverb from CT.
Right. Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless. Hivyo ndio umesema?
Hivyo ndivyo nimesema.
Tumekusikia. Sawa, tumekusikia. The conversation continues, and as we talk about the belly and making you useless, let's talk about also the belly, an empty belly that actually could make you useless. So, the impact of COVID-19 and the restriction measures, especially on movement that were introduced last year, had a severe effect on livelihoods of people. And there's that fear that this time, again, we will see a repeat of the kind of impact that we saw last year. Many people are asking, so the president is just announcing these measures. What is he announcing? Is he not announcing any tax breaks? Is he not announcing any new measures that can be taken into consideration? And then there are those that said, that is not the president's job. That is Parliament's job. Parliament has a role here. When we were speaking with Shakil Shabir, the MP for Kisumu East, he said he's a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. He is having a conversation with the chairman and with the Honorable Gladys Wanga, and after that they'll have a conversation with the Finance Caucus of Parliament. They'll have a conversation with other members of Parliament on what can they push through. But he also said, but remember, this Parliament, truth be told, is held captive by the executive. So if the executive does not want to, for example, come up with tax breaks, it's not going to happen. If the executive feels that they don't have money to put into some certain funds, for example, to do youth employment or empowerment, kazi mtaani, it will not happen unless there's a serious concerted effort.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the entire assembly being duty bound to the people, first of all. And that's what it is when it comes to representation, that it's not just going there and saying what your people expect you to say, but at the same time it is establishing these laws and having these debates that lead to something. It can't just be that you're having a talk shop about the things that you think are important. In my opinion, is that this conversation should actually lead to action. I mean, we talked to Mheshimiwa Shabir a few minutes ago, and what is he saying? He's sure that this conversation is going to take place. All right, great. And then we're talking about a situation that is stressful today. We're talking about things that need to be done now. We're talking about actions that need to take place today. It can't be a conversation and say, okay, let's go into recess and we'll come back and we'll pick it up from where we stopped. It's got to be something that leads towards action.
When it is spoken of, sometimes one forgets that the very people we are talking to are part of the group of the people who have brought us to this particular position that we are in. That they have contributed significantly to it. And that they perhaps didn't see what it would get us to, and they probably couldn't. Nobody could have foreseen COVID. But then here we are, and we're not just between a rock and a hard place. Everywhere around us is a rock, okay? And the life that people are living is hard. So whatever discussions that we have, it's like you let loose this dragon and you now can't control it. Because it acquired a life of its own, it grew, it's breathing fire, and the problem with such beasts is it'll even consume you, the person who let it loose in the first place. Because we have a situation that I think no matter how one looks at it, it is not easy. It isn't easy for the government. It isn't easy for the MPs. It isn't easy for those people in the finance committee. It isn't easy. But, unfortunately, this is a situation that they have brought upon themselves. And since they're the ones who brought us here, it is them who must find a way of getting us out of it.
One of the members of parliament who has been vocal when it comes to matters of the common mwananchi is Jude Njomo. You'll remember him. He's the man who sponsored the bill in parliament and it passed. And it was in effect for some time. And this was the bill that was capping interest rates from commercial banks in terms of loans. Well, after serious lobbying, that of course went back to where it was before. Jude Njomo is the chairman of the Parliamentary Economic Caucus. He joins us on the line now. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for joining us this morning. Jude Njomo is the MP for Kiambu constituency. So, Mheshimiwa, as the chairman of this Parliamentary Economic Caucus, people will be looking at people like such as yourselves to ask, what is it that our parliament can push through to cushion the vulnerable in the society today?
Okay, there are several things that parliament can do, but the most unfortunate thing is that this lockdown did not give us a notice. We thought we were through with the first lockdown, and we thought now things are going to be okay. Now comes a second lockdown, which is really unforeseen. Unfortunately, some of the measures that were taken during the first lockdown, including reduction of VAT, did not touch the common mwananchi. Because when the VAT was reduced from 16% to 14%, the ripple effect would have been that the cost of food prices and commodity prices is going to go down. But traders did not reduce the prices. So when eventually the VAT rate was brought back to 16%, the same traders who did not reduce the prices when it was brought up increased the prices again, which made life more expensive. So there are several things that Parliament can do, but unfortunately these are long-term actions which will help our 190 to feel stronger in terms of the economy. But the short-term activities that may be required are very, very difficult, because this may include like cash transfers. This would require a government that is very well endowed in terms of revenue to be able to do the cash transfers. So I'm seeing a situation where it's going to be quite difficult for 190 during this lockdown.
Mheshimiwa, there's something that I find a little disturbing in what you said when you say that you thought that the pandemic was over and done with, and yet the caucus of scientists and people who understand epidemiology were telling us that we were far from coming to the end of this. In fact, they were predicting peaks. What is happening now was even predicted. What is even more interesting, the peak is not even now. They're even predicting that it's in May and that the situation we have is going to be worse. So
we thought we were doing well because we had reduced the percentage of the infection rates. We had really come up to 3%, and we thought we were doing pretty well, But I think we also misbehaved as citizens. We misbehaved as politicians when we went for those rallies, when we went for those BBIs, when we went for those Tanga meetings. And we, as Wananchi, also the way we behaved when we went to social places was bad. And I think this is what may have caused the upsurge of the infection.
That is true, Mheshimiwa, but what you've just described was always the case, and this is what was always going to cause an upsurge. And yet, if we were to look at the science that is behind COVID and what our experts were telling us, should then not measures have been taken to ensure that there's a preparedness for yet another wave? Because this is yet another wave that we have. Should there not have been? Should Parliament not have discussed? Because you do have a parliamentary committee that deals with health issues, and many of the people who are in that committee are doctors. Should there not have been a preparedness to ensure that should a third wave occur, or in fact in this case is when it occurs, that there's a preparedness for it?
Oh, well, they may discuss it, but that does not mean that the government has the preparedness to tackle it. Just like the way it's struggling to get the vaccinations, the revenue is not doing well. The government is not doing very well in terms of revenue collection. So it doesn't matter how much you prepare yourself, so long as you don't have the money, you have an obstacle. You have very difficult to overcome.
But Mheshimiwa, the government doesn't seem to do very badly when it comes to borrowing money, and it is you people in Parliament who enable them to keep borrowing this money that makes it impossible for us to actually have debts that we cannot pay. So, I mean, this vicious cycle that we are talking about, it's something that has been created, and unfortunately from where I sit, the buck seems to stop with Parliament.
But even that borrowing does not happen overnight. Borrowing is planned. You have to plan ahead that we are going at this time to borrow this much. Then you prepare, get the necessary authority from Parliament, then go borrowing. So it doesn't mean that because there is a lockdown that you are saying our lockdown is going to come next month, you run to the World Bank and get a loan. It takes is a procedure that has to be followed, and it is unprecedented anyway.
As you say this, Mheshimiwa, and yes, you are a member of Parliament, you're the chair of the Economic Caucus, so you're very well a man who understands what's the goings-on in Parliament and also in government. But I got to ask this question. When the National Treasury comes up with a supplementary budget and Parliament is looking at that supplementary budget, is there no conversation that asks the questions, okay, how much money is going to go into addressing this emergency? Yes, there's a lot of money that's going into COVID-19, even in the supplementary budget, but where is it going, and is it enough? Are there safety nets that have been put to cushion citizens? Are those questions not coming up?
I think as we blame the government for not taking action, we should be cognizant of one fact, that the government has prepared our hospitals. Government has prepared all levels of hospital from level 5. Government has prepared ICUs. Government has prepared medicine that is treating our people. We've not had a problem when people have lacked medicine when they go to the hospital. I know there could be shortages of beds. The government has also prepared isolation hospitals, which are specifically treating COVID patients. And this has called for a lot of money, which has been allocated and it is being spent. Now, what may be lacking is what can help Mwananchi directly. And this, although it may not be the core responsibility of government to take care of those who have lost employment, those who are not able to go to the places where they go, and the school children who are not able to go to school, those who have lost their earning because tourism is not working out. Those are the people we are talking about right now.
And that's a fancy long list, Mheshimiwa. So now as you're looking at all of these, that list that you've just talked about now, it requires a lot of effort beyond a conversation. And I think that's where we are right now. The crux of the matter is that it cannot be a conversation. And there are people who are crying today. We had a conversation with a representative from the tourism sector this morning who is saying there are things that you can do. And just listening to him, it's actually logical that there are things that can be done now beyond just a conversation. And I think that is our pertinent question this morning. Beyond the conversation, beyond seeing things that is obvious have been done and, well done. However, right now, there are things that are throttling people today that require action beyond talk. How can that be made a reality?
I don't really understand. I don't really understand your question.
What are you going to do within the walls of Parliament, beyond having a conversation, to cushion Kenyans?
I think what we need to do is to revitalize our economy, is to allocate money where it is supposed to be. A good example, agriculture is one of the greatest revenue earners in our country. But as an economy, how much do we put into agriculture so that we can get even more from agriculture than we are doing right now? We need to allocate enough money so that people can look at agriculture not as a pastime, but as a business venture where they can make money. But now this is not a short-term measure that is going to help us with our immediate problem. It's a long-term thing that is going to help our economy.
In the last
the short term, that is the problem we are having. What are the short term activities that we can do now to help people who are suffering from the COVID problem?
That's true. There is medium, long, and long-term issues that can be done, and also the very immediate. So let me start with the long term. The conversation that you've said, for example, if we need to revitalize the economy, put more money into agriculture and other such sectors, 3 budgets passed by this parliament, 2018, 2019, 19, 20, now 2021. How much have we seen an incremental, movement in terms of the money that goes into agriculture being pushed by parliament, not coming from the National Treasury, but being pushed by parliament, which is a budget-making parliament?
National Treasury just does propose of the budget making actually is the responsibility of Parliament. But Parliament is looks at what does the government have, then it allocates to the different departments. And in the Maputo Declaration, African countries agreed to put at minimum of 10% into agriculture. We have not been able to attain this. I think we are doing about between 4 and 5%, which is not very good. But we every year there is an increment of the percentage that we are putting in agriculture. But we should put more. That much I agree.
Okay, into the short term. Since last year, we saw the impact of COVID-19 on the vulnerable, and we saw the national government the executive came to the National Assembly with measures on what it could do to cushion the vulnerable. This year, supplementary budget was presented to the National Assembly. Did you have a conversation about where is the cushion for the vulnerable in the event of another lockdown, which had already been predicted by the experts?
Well, I don't. That was not handled because in the first place, even the revenue that the government was projecting was not even enough to do the daily, the usual activities of the government. So this was not looked into.
And now you can understand our frustration as Kenyans with the National Assembly, where we feel that our representatives are failing us, because the people who should be looking at what is it that is very urgent, what it is that is going to be very, very important to the people, are out of touch with that reality.
What is very, very important to the people is that when they get sick and they go to the hospital, they'll get treatment. That is the first port of call for the government, that it is able to provide healthcare facilities to its citizens. And this has been done. And it is continuing to be done.
I understood. I hear you on that, and I think it's actually extremely important. But if we look at what is on the ground today, the majority of people who are crying are not crying about health care. The majority of people who are crying as a result of measures that have been put in place. They are not going to be able to maintain their livelihoods. And I think if we can't hear that cry, then there's a problem. And so the question still remains, what will be done about that? And yes, if there is no action that is being taken beyond a conversation to put out that particular cry, then Kenyans are frustrated.
The action that the government should do is to make sure that the economy remains vibrant, the economy is able to support its people, and people are able to make their money. I'm just trying to imagine that there are so many people who will not be able to go to work. for some time. The government has tried to bring in these kazi kwa vijana to help the young people who are out there doing nothing.
But it's over
the
now.
Government may not be able to employ everybody. The government may not be able to. I know there are some, like United States of America, when they had the first lockdown, they were supposed to do some cash transfers to their citizens who were affected. Our economy may not be able to support. May not be able to support that.
Why are we not able to support
like
that, Mheshimiwa? Why? Because as a taxpayer, I feel I've done my bit. So when you tell me I can't be supported in my time of need and I'm paying taxes and I'm still being asked to pay more taxes, then I'm going to ask the question, why am I paying taxes?
I don't really understand what you mean by that, because really, with the kind of economy that our country is, the government may not afford to supplement or to give cash transfer to all those people who have lost their jobs. Maybe they can get like food aid to those very, very vulnerable ones, to the elderly, but cash transfer may be a problem. Even the cash transfer that goes to the wazir, the government has never been able to get to all the wazir who are of age, but it goes on increasing the number.
Okay, so in your opinion, from the position where you sit, as you have these conversations, what do you think is the solution to the problems that Kenyans are facing today? Just with COVID, let's not even talk about before, when the economy was already on its knees. Today, what do you think is a practical solution, apart from agriculture, because that's a long-term thing, apart from people in hospital, because that's a minority of the population, the people who need help today? What do you think is a solution? So when you go have these conversations, what would you be discussing?
First and foremost is the government to invest on vaccination, so that in a short time we are all out of danger of this COVID. Two is the decisions that we make going forward should be decisions that are people-centered. We have seen some mistakes being done, especially the way our public procurement have been giving out contracts to foreign firms who bring in foreigners to come and work in our country at the detriment of local employment. We have very good skilled, very well-skilled people in our country, people who are able to do most of the technical work that is required. So we should look at the way...
Those aren't mistakes, those are crimes.
Yeah, they are. And that is why right now, Parliament is discussing a bill called Public Procurement Amendment Bill, so that we can eliminate all those loopholes which the bureaucrats are using in the ministry to give out work to foreigners. I'm also working on a bill called National Industrial Training Authority Bill, which I am amending so that we are able to train more of our youth through the National Industrial Training Authority. Because when we have more skilled youth, we are going to become a better investment destination. More people are going to bring their work here. Now people are going to be employed, and that will make our economy better. Also, when we are making decisions, like very soon, there's a new bus that is going to be introduced in Nairobi. We are creating lanes for the bus, growing red lines on the road. It's going to make transport very convenient in our city. But what is that going to do to our people who are working in the matatu industry? How all those people who are makangas, all those people who are at the stage, they are earning. But now a bus comes, it has its own lane, no jam, and it's going straight to town. It means it's going to kill the matatu industry.
Not necessarily, Mheshimiwa. What if those in the matatu industry actually are the ones who are involved in buying these buses? After all, they're all members of SACCOs.
That is where I was getting to now. We make sure that if they are coming to invest in that bus, then our own matatu people are allowed to invest in that bus, because their business is going to be killed. Yeah, this is the same thing that happened when Uber came in. Uber is so convenient. I just dial up a phone and it comes to my house and I go wherever I want. But what did it do to our economy? 25% of the money that is earned by Uber goes out of the country. Many taxis died because they did not meet the qualifications of being Uber. It is good, it is convenient, we look very nice, but it is killing our economy.
I like what you are saying, Mheshimiwa. I really do. Now, You talked about revitalizing agriculture. Tell me, what do we do, or what are we doing to actually protect our agriculture and the goods that are produced through our processes? Do we have enough measures in place to ensure that as we talk of revitalizing the agricultural sector, we are actually putting in place processes that guarantee that our agriculture actually thrives?
That was the very, very reason that we founded our caucus on economy and business. We recognize that we have an economy that is like a plane that spends all its time on the runway. It never gets the speed to take off. So our caucus is a caucus where we have put people of like minds, people who have interest in matters economy, so that they can look at those facts. What is happening to our economy? And we are taking sector by sector. The last time we had a meeting with the people in Gekomba and the importers of those who import
Mitumba.
These Mali. And we had a lengthy discussion trying to understand what is this that is affecting their business. What is this that is causing endless fires in Gekomba and that is killing our businesses. And we are going to be going sector by sector. We spent a lot of time dissecting the economic partnership agreement between Kenya and UK because we thought that it was not properly negotiated. And we spent a whole week to hold up together with the ministry and all the stakeholders. And we had proper public participation. And we understood the partnership agreement, and we made also our recommendation, which enriched the report that the finance committee did. So we are not just lying down doing nothing. We are even doing extra because the caucus, like the caucus that we have formed, is not a mandatory thing, but is our own voluntary way of looking at our economy and making recommendations to the different committees on the way forward on how we can make our economy better. And this caucus is very, very, very focused.
So there's a recommendation that has been made by Mohamed Yarsi, the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. It's just something that can be done. Look at the fuel levies and taxes. More than 50% of what I'm paying at the pump is going to government in terms of levies. How can Parliament address this to lower the cost of fuel?
The fuel prices are normally recommended by IPRA, the Petroleum Authority.
Yes.
And yes, I agree that there is quite a bit that goes, almost 50% goes to government. This is one matter which can be negotiated between Parliament and Treasury to recommend reduction in that tax.
You know, I'm asking you that, Mheshimiwa, is because for some time you were touted as mtetezi wa wanyonge when you pushed through that bill on interest rate capping.
Yeah.
So somebody would be wondering, so where is Jude Njomo when I'm paying 60 out of every 100 bob I'm paying to buy a liter of kerosene, 40 bob or 60 bob is actually going to government? Where is Jude Njomo?
You see, one thing which makes regulation of petroleum prices very difficult is that it is not necessarily done during the budget. It is also determined by the world prices. So in between the year, IPRA would change the cost of fuel pegged on the barrel prices, the world barrel prices. That kind of keeps Parliament off the decision making on the.
But
on
the duties,
the
duties you have a responsibility and a role. Excise duty, for example, whatever other levies are levied on that liter of fuel, all those come to Parliament.
And all those are controlled by Parliament.
Yes, they are. I agree with you. But the government also takes quite a bit of its expenditure on what it gets from the fuel levy.
So are you saying that because the government must get something to spend, because the government has to get something to spend, and here we are on the other side where the control that Parliament has over these decisions that are made then would be usurped by the government's need to have money to spend? And so you can't really do anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying we can't do anything about it. But I'm saying also the government is also doing a lot of work. If you go out there, you see there is a lot of construction of roads and what have you. We have
Mheshimiwa, that's their job.
We have to make a decision and agree that because the economy has changed, because of the effects of COVID, let us go slow on development so that we can reduce on taxes as a rebate, as a means of relieving people from the effects of the COVID economic effects. That's a decision that has to be made.
We're having a conversation.
Is why as we go to Parliament today, because there is a proposal that we go on recess because of the lockdown. But I think the best thing is instead of us going on a recess, we can go virtual. We can meet from remote locations so that we address these things because these are urgent matters that need to be discussed.
We're having a conversation with Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu constituency, chairman of the Parliamentary Economic Caucus, looking at what the government can do, what the legislators can do to cushion Kenyans during this time of COVID-19. Stay on the line, Honorable Jude Njomo. We want to take a break, see what's happening on the roads and the weather forecast for the rest of the day. And then we continue the conversation. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, 28 minutes to 10.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of Get
All right,
the weather
peeking
with
out in some
Spice.
parts of Nairobi, at least 19 degrees. It'll go to highs of 25 today, down to lows of 17 and a chance of rain later on. It's raining in Nyeri at 18, highs of 23 and lows of 15. 15 will also be the low in Nakuru, where it's raining at 20, going to highs of 27. We'll see highs of 24 in Eldoret today. It's sunny now at 18, and light rain continues in Kisumu, 27 the high and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 24, highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's going to go to highs of 32 in Mombasa, down to lows of 27. It's mostly sunny now. It's raining in Malindi, quite warm at 30, going to highs of 32 and lows of 27. And Kampala's experiencing heavy thunderstorms at 20, highs of 23 and lows of 18. It's raining in Dar es Salaam, highs of 31, lows of 25. We're looking at highs of 23 in Johannesburg. It's sunny at 15, mostly sunny in Lagos at 26, highs of 33, highs of 30 in Kinshasa, where it's raining now at 23. Let's look into Beijing, where it's quite warm, going to highs of 21 today, down to lows of 8 and sunny conditions through and through. It's also sunny in Paris at 7, highs of 24, highs of 22 in London. It's sunny at 5, and round things out in New York, where it's clear at 8. It'll go to highs of 15 and lows of 10.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, looking better on these Nairobi streets this morning. Not too much traffic. There's a roadblock at the Katumani Machakos Junction this morning along Mombasa Road that has been temporarily moved to Malili. So stay calm. It was taking long to sort this out. So it seems like everybody is stuck there and not moving. It's affecting traffic. Is it? Yes, it is. It's going to take some time to get past this one, but they're working on that so that roadblock situation will be sorted out. Mombasa Road, if you can traverse the lake, you should be all right. Right at Airtel there, where that is being worked on, is causing some problems and giving way to, yes, traffic. So those are the two spots we look out for this morning. Thika Road looking much better coming out of industrial area, also looking a lot better getting in and out of the city. Talk to us through the day. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
25 minutes.
94.4 Spice FM.
In the room with you is CT Muga Nduoko. Eric Latif. Joining us on the line is the MP for Kiambu constituency, Jude Njomo, who's also the chairman of the Parliamentary Economic Caucus. Talk to Mheshimiwa. We're going to open up the phone lines now, 0719-012-600. What is it that the National Assembly can do to help the government cushion the vulnerable Kenyans? Mheshimiwa, when you go to Kiambu constituency today, and that's one of the first questions that has come in via SMS, and you find one person who's been running a food kiosk in Kiambu constituency, but now they are not be able to run that food kiosk because people cannot come and sit in the restaurant to eat. What would you tell that person? What is it that should be done to help them through this time?
Mine would be to advise him on maybe an alternative way of doing business, because now we cannot have sit-in. For him to look for a way of selling takeaways or even doing deliveries to different places, at least to supplement on what he would be getting while seated. I would even ask them, if people are not coming to you, go to where they are. Because construction work is still going.
Yep.
Those construction workers will still need to eat. So instead of you waiting for them to come for food, go to where they are doing the work and deliver the food to them.
Do they require any support in this?
What kind of support?
I don't know, financial, material.
I think here is where we may need more creativity, because sometimes Serikali's idea may not help so much. We need people to be creative now also in their businesses, because the revenues are not coming to the government, being opened. Come to Kiambu Road, there is even a liquor supermarket which came up during that COVID lockdown. That is what I call now creativity. We also need to be creative in the way we do business, so that if this one changes, you also change so that you can survive in business.
Okay, so today you're having this conversation in Parliament, right? Before you go on recess. From the top of your head, what do you think is going to come out of it beyond the conversation? And I have to ask again.
Well, one of the major conversations that is going to take place today, and I have seen it being discussed in social media by members of Parliament, is that they were feeling that the president is interfering with the parliamentary calendar, that the president has no powers to call off Parliament. But when you read what the president said, he said is in concurrence. We have his recommendation should be in concurrence with Parliament. Just like whenever the government has a bill that it would like passed by Parliament, it brings the proposal to Parliament so that Parliament can discuss it and then make it a law. So in the same breath, he has brought a proposal that because of the effects of COVID, they would recommend that the Parliament adjourns until the situation becomes better. And this is why I was proposing that we may stop doing physical meetings and continue with our virtual discussions so that we can look for ways and means of making the livelihood of our people much, much better than the way it is.
So you're saying that if Parliament did not recess today, is there some kind of guarantee that Kenyans would have that, all right, they're not going on holiday, they're actually breaking their necks to make sure that we get some help? Is that what you're saying? That if the president had not shut it down, then we would find a way to help Kenyans?
Well, that is part of our responsibility, looking for ways and means of making the livelihoods of our Kenyans better. So we would have continued to do that. And I believe we are going to have a discussion and agree that although we are not going to be meeting physically, we meet virtually so that we can continue executing our mandate to the people.
Okay. So if you continue with a sitting, what would be the immediate business that you'd like to address? Let's say that even the speaker agrees with you that let's continue having our sittings virtually. What is it that you'd like to see as the first order of business now?
Well, first, I think our schools are now closed, and we do not know when these schools are going to reopen. What are we going to do with our children? How are our children going to continue doing their education? How are our children going to continue learning while the schools are closed? Is there any way we can continue teaching our children? 2, what are we going to do to the people who have been affected by closure? People in tourism industry, people in food industry. How can they be helped? Is there any way we can raise revenue? Is there any way we can create like alternatives for them?
Is there? I have to stop you there and ask then, is there? And I think because you are the one, honestly, I sometimes feel as though maybe Parliament doesn't realize or understand how much power you actually do have. So as you're asking these questions, I am asking you also, is there something that can be done when you talk about the insecurity and thinking that you don't know when children will go back to school, you don't know how long this lockdown will be, you don't know. Is there something that can be done? So that's the question, and I'm going to ask again. It may sound like the 7th time, but then is there something that can be done? As you're asking, is there some kind of reality that abides in your mind right now amongst your colleagues as well?
Can be done so that the children can go back to school?
No, what can be done to protect the people? Because you're asking the question, is there something that can be done for learning to continue while these children are at home, in case they have to stay at home for a longer period of time? Is there something that can be done for security for businesses if this lockdown lasts for the next 3 months? Is there something that can be done?
What would your proposal be?
What would your proposal be as you go and have this meeting this morning?
Those are the matters now that we have to, you see, those are matters that we have to sit down and discuss and find out solutions. What can we do if this lockdown is going to continue for 2 months? Transport from Nairobi to other places has been closed down. People who are working at the airport, they are not working because there is no transport going on. It's not a simple matter that I can come here and say abracadabra, this is a solution. It's something that needs to be discussed in details. It's something that we need to call experts who can advise us also as parliamentarians on what can we do.
My problem right there, Mheshimiwa, is again, since March last year, Parliament seems not to have thought ahead. Parliament is catching up with what has been happening for a whole year.
Let me also ask you a question now.
Yes.
What would you have done if you were a member of Parliament? What would you have done in advance with having in mind about the revenues, government gets its money from people who are doing business. Government gets its money from taxes.
Yes.
So people were not earning, they were not paying taxes to the government.
I would have thought
ahead. So the
ahead.
government is not lacking in terms of money.
I would have thought ahead, Mheshimiwa. As a parliamentary caucus on economics, I would have said all those things that you're saying. Let's bring in experts. Let's bring in other people. I would have had those conversations last year. I would have said, in the event this thing goes on up to 2024, up to 2022, what is it that we can do with a supplementary budget, with the next financial year's budget? What is it that can be done to help people or to help this economy stay afloat?
I have already told you that we have gone even further than that in forming this caucus so that we can talk to the people and help the relevant committees with information to try and overcome these problems. We have gone beyond what is expected of us so that we can look for information. I have told you we had a retreat where we invited stakeholders to understand what is it that we can do to help them. And that is a process that we had already started. But things may be moving faster. I know what you are saying may sound very, very easy, that we just go there, we discuss and say we are going to allocate 100 million to the Jua County sector. But where is this 100 million going to come from when the government is not able to collect money?
The government actually collects money, Mheshimiwa. The problem is the bulk of the money that we collect, we pay debts with. It's not that the government doesn't collect money, it does. And we have these debts because you, individuals in Parliament, guaranteed and ensured that the government could borrow and continue borrowing. Even now, I think we are setting ourselves up to borrow some more. So,
I think I can see the cat now chasing its tail. Because
actually, that really is precisely it. You've actually got it. Mheshimiwa, you've actually understood it perfectly. Perfectly. That is precisely it.
You are the one telling us that you should not borrow. And the same mouth that is telling me not to borrow is telling me you go out there and borrow and give people money.
Actually, no. We don't really want you to borrow. We want you to find ways and means of using what we have to revitalize the economy. And taxing the living daylights out of the citizens is not going to revitalize the economy.
what we have is what you have. You are lucky you are working. All those people who are not working right now, they are not earning. They were supposed to pay some money to the government as tax. And this tax is the one which is used now to run government. Now, because they are not earning, the government is also not earning. So it has a shortfall of revenue.
Mheshimiwa, you and I both know that we are simplifying this issue. It isn't that the government doesn't have money. The situation we are in now is a culmination of bad decisions that have been made for a long time, even before COVID, and we are now here reaping the unfortunate consequences of those decisions. That's where we are. So, since this is where we are asking you, because you are our legislators and you're the people in whose hands we now place our livelihood, what do we do next beyond discussing it?
Yeah, indeed. And let's go to the phone lines. We have Douglas on the line who also would like to contribute to the conversation. Douglas, good morning.
Good morning, Eric Latif and CT, together with Bindu.
Good morning to you.
Well, I think we have a problem in terms of oversight authority that has been given to the Parliament. Honestly speaking, they are not doing what they're supposed to do, because you find that they have been given the mandate by the law and the Constitution that they are supposed to implement laws that they are supposed to safeguard the wananchi. But you find that they react in a kind of a knee-jerk, when there's an issue and there's pressure from wananchi, that's when you find that people coming up with ideas. When it's already too late, people already had pressed, especially with the COVID that is really ravaging the economy. My suggestion would be that our Parliament should be more proactive, in the sense that they need to meet different kind of stakeholders and get to know what is it that these people are going through. Like I had the conversation that Mohamed Hessi had this morning. You could clearly feel that these people are actually neglected. They have no one to run to. They have presented their petitions, but it's like they're not given an ear. And as a result, it has a ripple effect. When there's no activity going on, let's say, for example, in the tourism industry, it means that the government is not getting any money.
Yeah.
So I don't know what role does the plan, rather what plans does the government has, the Parliament has in regard to helping these people at least raise the living of standards of the common man who's actually
Douglas,
actually suffering down here.
Just to answer a part of that question, I think that's what the Honorable Jude Njomo is saying. They have formed this Parliamentary Economic Caucus. They have gone on retreats. They've invited various stakeholders to come in and tell them, what are your pain points? Now, with that, I think the question then would be, after they hear from the people, what do they do with the information that they've collected from, for example, the small-scale traders, the people in Gekomba? Mheshimiwa, what do you do with that information, or what have you done with the information that you've collected so far?
When we sat down with the stakeholders, we also invited our drafters and our technical teams, so that at the end of the meeting we decide now, we have observed this is a problem. What can we do to sort out that problem? And there were so many of them, but I can cite one of them. That these importers sometimes, when they go out there, identify the material that they want to import and bring it to Kenya. Sometimes when they are at high seas, the taxation regime changes. What they were supposed to pay 10%, they find now it is 20%. And maybe their markup was only 10%. So the business does not make sense at all. So one of the proposals that we are having is that whenever there is change of taxation, especially on import and what have you, and enough, there should be given enough time. So if the government decides that we are going to increase excise duty on this material, it should not take effect immediately. People should be given a notice of about three months that from July 1st, the taxation is going to be changed to this much. so that those people who are having their goods, those who have placed orders, those whose materials are being manufactured in China or wherever, they will have enough time to bring them. And so that when they are making their next order, they know exactly that this is what I'm going to pay in terms of taxation. That is just one of the examples of the things that we discussed. Having in mind that the change of taxation affects the profitability of our business people. So many people had their businesses collapse because they did not pay tax of what they expected. The other one is like when they changed. There were some products that were declared to be counterfeit, and they were not supposed to be imported. But these people have been selling those things for years. Over 10 years, they've been selling. You have been selling a pencil for 10 years. Then today, that pencil becomes that it is illegal to have that pencil. So we agreed that there should be a discussion. People should be involved before this change of regulations.
Taxation regimes.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Brian.
It's trying to understand, because there are so many businesses happening out here. You may not be a master of all, and that is why we invite the stakeholders so that we can understand what pain they are going through and how is it that we can help, and then we can do the necessary legislation. And not only legislation, if, for example, there is communication breakdown between people who are selling electrical material and the KRA, we can mediate. We can invite KRA, we can invite the stakeholders, then we have a roundtable conference, then we make them understand each other so that the business can be done amicably.
Let's hear from Brian in Nairobi. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
To you.
I think the main issue here that Parliament should look into is taxation. You see, the higher the taxation, the lower the rate of compliance. There is a Laffer curve in economics where it says from zero taxation, government collects nothing. But if government also collects 100% taxation, people will stop producing. So the government should look at the optimum level where people will be comfortable working, and then they'll be collecting optimum taxes. Issue number 2 is formalizing the economy. You see, what happened is wherever there's a problem, the government taxed the same people. When they wanted to do housing, the Big Four housing, they went to the people who are formerly employed and increased their taxation to meet that cap. So you find that the government puts pressure to a small number of people instead of increasing the tax bracket by formalizing the economy. The way they do matatus, they put them in circles and everything. In housing, for example, we don't need money outside that sector. People in Kenya work, mainly 40% goes to rent. So there's a lot of money already in the housing sector. It's just a matter of structuring it correctly, like the good old days where Kanjo houses used to cost 2,000 and they were in plenty. So the government need to play around and figure out how to do this without incurring so much debt.
What did you say to that, Mweshimiwa?
I totally agree with Brian. He has made a lot of sense there. That sometimes if people are taxed too much, they are unable to pay. But if we can widen the tax bracket so that everybody is paying tax, everybody, then the government will be able to collect more. It is on this same breath that I'm doing the National Industrial Trading Authority. Right now, there is a law for NITA that every employer should pay 50 shillings per employee to NITA so that they can be able to train people. How many employers pay that much? Only the corporate bodies are paying. The people in our small and medium enterprises don't even know about it. Now, NITA has no capacity to go out there and collect. But if we give this mandate to Kenya Revenue Authority knows who is the employer and it knows who are the employees. So it will be very, very easy for KRA to do that. That way, the NITA will collect a lot of money. We will be able to train many of our youth into TVET institutions, in our polytechnics, and we shall have a wide variety of technical people to choose from when you want to be an employer. And that is why I'm saying this will make Kenya a smarter investment destination, because we shall have skilled people who are ready to take industry and move it forward.
Now,
so I am
Mheshimiwa,
totally in agreement with Brian about formalizing our economy.
Is there
so that
something?
Everybody is paying his due tax, from the farmer to the mechanic to the
everybody.
shopkeeper. Everybody to pay his tax.
Is there something, Mheshimiwa, that members of parliament sitting as the legislature can do to make sure that before the government comes up with new budget, they are also coming up to show what measures they've put in place to widen this bracket? So there's, the checks and balances that you're supposed to be offering. Is there something that you can do to say, okay, before we approve your budget the next time, we want to see notable increment in the number of people who are paying tax?
These are challenges that have been put to Treasury through the Budget and Appropriation Committee of Parliament, because there is a feeling that the revenue collection is not being done right.
Yep.
The government can be able to collect much, much more. If you remember, when President Kibaki came to power, he gave a moratorium and told people, okay, if you know you're supposed to pay your taxes, then you start paying. But if you don't pay and we get you, we will ask you even to pay for the arrears. This increased the collection in tax by far much wider. So this discussion of formalizing the tax collection is a discussion that is ongoing. Trying to identify other areas where tax can be collected.
It's an excellent idea, Mheshimiwa, but should we also not accompany it by asking what it is that the uses that our taxes are put to? I believe that Parliament has an oversight role to ensure that these taxes, once collected, actually go to the places that they are supposed to.
Yeah, that is the role of Parliament, and Parliament does that. From a division of revenue, appropriating the budget, that does, and we also have committees, departmental committees, that oversight each and every ministry to make sure that the money that has been allocated is properly used. And if it is not properly used, it is taken to the Public Accounts Committee, where these people are interrogated, and if they are found vulnerable, they are forwarded to the EACC for criminal action to be taken. I think Parliament is doing its job there.
Okay.
Mheshimiwa Jude Njomo, time has run out, and thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Jude Njomo is the MP for Kiambu constituency and the chairman of the Parliamentary Economic Caucus. We hope to host you in the studio soon.
Thank you.
Mheshimiwa, thank you very much.
Before you go, Mheshimiwa, listen to today's proverb by C.T. Muga.
Yes, Mheshimiwa. Do not allow the belly to make you useless. It's a proverb, actually. I'm not talking to you. I'm actually reading the proverb.
You see, whenever you give a proverb,
yes,
you must also translate it.
Yes, Mheshimiwa. Let me just give you hints as to what one can consider. You see, the belly, if the belly is empty, it influences the way you think. If it's very full, it influences the way you think. If you want the belly to be full, it also influences the way you think. So, yes, that is the broad perspective. And the belly here could be used metaphorically to mean many other things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you say the proverb again?
Yes, I can say the proverb again. Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Okay.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa. Have a lovely day.
It can also make you useless if it's too big and you can't move.
That is very true too.
That is absolutely true, Mheshimiwa.
Okay.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.